I'd like to call the Board of Selectmen meeting to order for Tuesday, November 15th at 6:06 p.m. Could I have a roll call, please?
Teresa A. Morse, yes.
Chaz Sexton Duranian present.
And Veronica Cal present. Our votes today will be roll call votes because we have a person remote. Right, could you join me for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible. Thank you. I'd like to announce that the meeting is being tape recorded. It'll be it's live on Channel 9 and it will be posted later on YouTube. For chairman's additions and deletions, I have one. It's 4:11 on the agenda for water line information and a questionnaire that came in late today for extending the water main along South Row Road and Emery Road. So we'll talk about that then. The response is required by December 2nd, and our next meeting is not until December 6th. So we're adding that today to the agenda. Are there any other additions? Teresa?
No, Madam Chair.
Chaz?
No.
And I don't have any deletions. So. And all right, public comment period. Yes. I know we had one person who wanted to.
Yeah, so I'm Irene Condon. I'm the chair of the Town's Recycling Committee. Today is America Recycles Day. And here's your sticker for America Recycles Day. And I just want to announce the state just awarded us this afternoon $10,800 from Mass Department of Environmental Protection for the recycling dividend program. So we're happy that we got some more money and so we can use it to reduce our waste even further. And we did very good. We got 18 points, which is a lot. So we did a lot of various things through education, the hazardous waste program through Devon's, all the stuff that we do at the transfer station, the mattress program that is now new also was part of a grant that we received earlier this fall, and then the credit of just for composting education. So, and the committee's still here. We also have Sally and Susan, and we'd always love more people to join in with us.
All right.
So
Thank you so much.
I gave you one.
I have one. I do have one. Bill might need one.
Great. Thank you very much for everything you guys do for us.
Thank you. Thank you for coming
Thank
to
you.
the meeting. Are there any other comments? All right. Moving on to the minutes. Just waiting.
Go ahead.
We have two sets of minutes up for approval tonight. Let me get to those. One is from the joint meeting on June 23rd with the Board of Selectmen, the Finance Committee, and the Audit Committee. And the second is from July 5th. So is there a motion to approve the meeting minutes for 6/23/2022? This is the joint meeting with where we reviewed the audit.
I make a motion that we approve the meeting minutes from 6/23/2022.
One second.
Are there any comments on it?
If I may ask Sabrina, is she having problems with the runoff pages on these? Because I noticed the last couple of them, we have like 4 or 5 pages that are additional at the end of it.
Right. I sent an email to Sabrina about that, and she said it's in the template. And she's having difficulty getting rid of it, so she's gonna meet with, the Guardian person when they come back. It's the SharePoint template that we're using for minutes that seems to be the issue. When I've done the minutes, I wind up with at least one page extra at the end. So it has something to do with the template that we're using.
Okay.
So if you have insight into that,
might-
feel free to.
I might pop in and share some wisdom with Sabrina on that.
I'm sure she'd appreciate it.
Okay.
No, but we did have an email conversation about that.
Okay.
So, and when she posts them, she doesn't print them with those in there. She takes those pages out so that they aren't there. But when we're looking at them, they are there. And it's, I haven't quite figured out why that is. I can get it down to one page, but that's it.
Okay.
So even if I put up the character thing, so it shows you what characters there are, yeah, there's no characters to delete, so. All right, any other comments on the minutes? I know I had none. All right, so, we need a vote. Teresa, how do you vote?
Teresa A. Marsh, yes.
Chaz Sexton Duranian, yes.
And Veronica Kell, yes. And is there a motion for the minutes of, July 5th?
I make a motion that we approve the minutes from July 5th, 2022.
Is there a second?
I second.
All right, any comments on these?
Yeah, I guess it's fine, but it took away 1.6 deletion 4. It was it 4.5 or 4 and 5? It says 4/5, so I'm sure.
April 5th is how I read that,
Oh, okay.
as not ready. So we deleted the 4/5.
That's what it was.
Minutes.
Okay, I got a little confused. Okay.
Do you have a suggestion for a different
No,
way
it's
to?
fine. Just
to
I
do it?
know what it is. Yeah.
Chaz, how about you?
No, I'm good.
Okay, I didn't have any, other comments on that, so. All right, Teresa, how do you vote?
Teresa A. Morse, yes.
Chaz Sexton Duranian, yes.
And Veronica Kell, yes.
If I may,
Yes.
Madam Chair, I'm wondering if the board would be willing to take number 4.9 out of order. We do have Ross Carey, who is here via Zoom. And I wonder if we might be able to accomplish that before our 6:30 meeting.
I don't know how long Ross, how long do you think it's gonna take? Is 15 minutes enough? Because we have a 6:30 with Bill Rideout.
I think it's a good start, and if we don't, we can always finish it later.
All right, so.
Thank you.
Is there a motion to take 4.9, to review the proposals from the two companies for energy aggregation for town buildings, out of order?
I make a motion that we move item 4.9 to review the proposal for two companies for energy aggregation for town buildings out of order.
I'll second that.
All those in favor, Teresa
Teresa A. Marsh, yes.
Chaz Sexton Duranian, yes.
and Veronica Kell, yes. So welcome, Ross.
Thank you.
And, do you need to share screen at all?
I don't need to. I've sent you the quotes from Freedom Energy and the quote from Good Energy. Both of them came in late this afternoon.
So I have copies of the quotes. It's actually a very simple evaluation. They're both laid out in the same fashion, which is depending on term, 12-month, 24-month, 36-month, and 48-month. If you'd like, I can make copies.
Yes,
If that would be helpful.
that would be helpful. Is it in the SharePoint though?
No, it was an email that went out to everybody. I think Ross.
I could share a screen if you.
Yeah, would that be okay? Hartley, could you make it so that Ross can share his screen, please? All right, looks like you're the co-host now.
Right. So how do I,
So
Sure.
Janet, so bring up the document on your screen and then go down to the bottom and
Of the Zoom screen.
of the Zoom screen, and it should say share screen. You click on that and you click on what you want to share.
okay? Do you see a spreadsheet?
Not yet, no.
You have to click on the thing and then the share button.
Okay, click on the thing first and then the share button. So bring up the document.
The document's
on it.
up.
Okay, click on it and then click on share down at the bottom, share screen. The screen, it was the opposite direction.
All these technical terms. Click on the thing.
At the bottom of the Zoom screen, there should be able to get up a
Yeah,
little.
now I see several documents up here. I've clicked on the,
One you want to show,
yep,
and then did you click share screen down at the bottom?
The button might be in.
okay.
There we go.
Yeah. On mine, it's at the bottom. Okay, yes, we can see it.
So as Eric was explaining, they both quoted, this is Good Energy and Freedom Energy. They quoted 12, 24, 36, and 48 months. Now, this is to consolidate the municipal buildings. And you can see that basically Good Energy's rates for all four periods is a couple points less than Freedom Energy.
More
And-
importantly, significantly less than Unitil.
Yes, and what I've got here is the Unitel rate for residential customers effective December 1st. I don't know what their G2 rate is for that period, but if their G2 rate is more than 16.5 cents, it makes sense to go with Good Energy. And it looks like you could save 2.4% in 12 months, or you could save maybe 8 months, 8% over 48 months. The question is, where will Unitel's rate go?
So Ross, can I ask you a question?
Yes,
Is this
please.
Is this for the town buildings only?
Yes.
Yes, we don't have the residential aggregation rates.
Okay,
So the first step is the relatively quick one to implement, and that is for the town buildings.
and can I ask you another question?
Yeah, we just
Please.
lost-
Is this, okay, this slipped out of my head. Are we bid out with any other town, or are we, bid just Townsend on this?
This is just Townsend, but both Freedom Energy and Good Energy, I'm sure, combined their requirements from any other customers to get these rates.
Okay,
But this is just for Townsend.
so if we go with, the three, well, I can't imagine the rates are gonna come down on this. If we go with the 3-year, that means we're locked in for the 3 years.
Yes. Now, I haven't read the fine tune wording of the contracts, but I'm sure there's ways to get out of these contracts. Especially with Good Energy, as they would not bind us to something that we couldn't get out of.
Okay, all right. Teresa, do you have a question? Go ahead.
Actually, I have a couple of questions. So, the first, I don't know, I thought I did some math and I maybe came up with it. Where did the 24.6% come from for Unitel's rate?
That's comparing the Good Energy rate versus the Unitel's 22 cents, which
And that's
they're
what-
announcing for residents, or they have announced, but it'll be effective December 1. And you may remember last year around December, we had a lot of complaints from residents because they were seeing the new December rates.
Okay, but
I
that,
remember
as you
that.
said, is not the current, that's not the current G2 rate. Like I have the current government rate.
Increased
It's
usage in
significant
December,
that-
so their electric bills, and I think this will happen again. What we're talking about tonight does not specifically address the residential bills. It addresses the bills that the town actually pays.
Right, but the number you gave us, the 22.22, you're comparing resident rates. You
Yes,
didn't
'cause-
give us, you didn't give us the comparison for our current rate with the town.
That's correct. I believe that Townsend gets a G2 rate, government 2 rate, and I'm not able to find what that is currently. My suggestion is, with a little bit more, if you vote to go with one of these two providers with the contingency that it's less than Unitel's G2 rate effective December 1, you can move ahead. If it turns out that Unitel is less, which I would be very surprised, then you wouldn't change.
And then obviously you can't answer for other people, but there was an article in the Fitchburg Sentinel that they decided to put the aggregation on hold until the prices stabilize a little bit, because they didn't feel there was that much of a difference in the rates at this point, and they thought they'd want a little bit more stabilization. Can you just give me your opinion on that?
Well, I would agree the rates are unstable. There's a lot of pressure in the United States, and there's a lot of pressure due to the Russia and Ukraine situation. So rates are all over the place. I don't think they're going to go lower. Certainly not during the winter. The winter is usually the high month for these utilities. If you think that they're going to vary and could go down, you could take a shorter term.
And what harm would we have if we think they're gonna go down and just wait 6 months, like Fitchburg just made a decision to do, and see what they are in the fall, in the spring, I'm sorry.
You could do that. You would pay whatever the December rate is. I think if Fitchburg was probably talking about the residential aggregation, because I understand that through Good Energy, they have just gotten their plans approved by the Department of Public Utilities. And maybe Good Energy decided not to go out to bid, or this isn't the best time to bid
Okay, I'll check that.
for the
Thank you.
residential customers. But the board had asked me to come up with a rate for town buildings, and we're still working on the residential aggregation.
Understood, thank you.
And Fitchburg, I believe, has been doing aggregation for a while. So their rates
Yeah,
would
maybe.
be lower anyway. You know, they would not be looking.
Maybe it was just redoing them at this time or something. I'll
Right.
double check the article. Okay, thank you.
Mhm. Chaz, do you have any questions?
I do not. I've been kind of watching a lot of this. I don't believe that we should compare Fitchburg to our situation as apples to pears. It's completely two different situations. I believe that this is a fair representation, and where the rates are going now, we know that what the rates are going to be in December, and I think we should lock them in. That's my opinion.
All right, so we need a motion then for a term and a company. And I guess, is there a motion?
Yes, I will, well, wait a minute. No, I don't know what the motion's gonna be.
And I do think that it was important to what Ross mentioned, But, the motion should include, assuming that the rate that we're gonna get is lower than the current G2 rate that Unitil offers. And we can find that out before we sign any kind of document. The question is, how long do we want to sign up for? Really, I mean, that's the,
I guess for me, I wouldn't want to sign up for more than 3 years. I wouldn't go for 4 years. And the question is that too long? And it would be good to know, what the, get out of it, part of it is, if we look at it and say, oh, well, this 0.14897, and I'm assuming that 0.14897 is for all 3 years. Is that correct, Ross?
Yes.
Okay, so if that would become not favorable, and I think that is actually better than the current residential rate right now. I don't know how it compares to the G2 rate.
we just need to figure that out.
Okay, so I at least wouldn't want to go for more than 3 years. Teresa and Chaz, what do you guys think?
I agree. I was thinking of 2 years.
Teresa?
Yeah, I was leaning more towards 3.
Why just 2, Chaz?
Cold feet. I can honestly say that my opinion would be that no matter what we do, we're going to better Unitil's rate, because I doubt that they're ever going to go down. They have constantly gone up. Historically, they have gone through the roof. If the board so feels the 3 years, I'm okay with the 3 years. I don't have an issue with the 3 years.
The reason you just stated is exactly why I think we should just do the 3 years.
Yeah.
I think it'll be better than Unitil, but we have to find that out. And we would get the advantage of that extra, 1 or whatever for all, for the first 2 years as well.
Okay.
So is there a motion to go ahead with Good Energy for a term of 3 years, contingent on this rate being less than the G2 rate?
Or whatever rate the town is paying right now. I think
Less than the rate that the town is paying.
Well, I think contingent upon the Unitel's December 1 rate being more than the 3-year rate you're talking.
Correct. I know. I apologize. You're right, Ross.
Because their current rate may actually be less than this, but I think it's going to be going up in the vicinity of 22 cents.
Is there a motion?
When are we meeting again?
We're meeting on December 6th. That's our next meeting. So that is in 1, 2, 3 weeks.
My problem is, I'd just like to discuss this a little more. Before we lock in based on a December 1st rate, if there's only a few cents difference, I'm not sure I want to lock in for 3 years. On the off chance that things could go down. Plus, I don't know what happens.
Okay, so what do we have up here? Is that you, Ross, who's found this? This is effective June 1st.
I just don't. Curious what does it to do to have the additional information and vote on this next meeting.
Ross, can you answer that?
Well, these rates change daily, and they could go up later, especially if Unitel's now got a higher rate.
So if we vote tonight what rate do we lock in at? This rate that was given us today on November 15th?
Yes, and the rates will be different. You know, when I ask these vendors to pick rates based upon your meeting on the 15th, if you want to hold and wait, then I would ask them to requote based upon the rates on December 6th, did you say?
Yes.
I'm ready to move forward. I'm ready to make a motion if you want me to, Madam Chair.
Let me just look at what Ross has here a minute, and see if we
Yep.
can find those G2 rates.
It's telling me that I pay for a subscription. I had a real paper in my hand when I read it, like, that's a thing of the past.
I mean, if you vote tonight to go with Good Energy, as long as the rates are less than their Unitel's December 1 rates, I think you're covered.
So I'm ready for a motion.
Okay, I make a motion that we approve, we vote to go forward with the town building energy aggregation plan using Good Energy with the 3-year contract with the fixed rate of 0.14897.
Is there a second?
A second.
Any further discussion?
You didn't want that proviso about that.
Right, we want the proviso, assuming that the,
That
The
rate is lower than
G2
the
rate.
December G2 rate that the town would be paying as of December.
yeah, let's add that. So editing the motion, go forward with Good Energy for the 3-year term at this, 14897 rate, assuming that rate is less than the December 1st G2 rate. Does that work, Chaz? And
Yes.
Lisa?
I'll second that one, Joe.
Okay. Any other discussion? Thank you, Bill. All right, how do we vote, Teresa
Teresa A. Marsh, yes?
Chaz Sexton Duranian, yes.
and Veronica Cal, yes. So thank you, Ross.
Great. Do you want to authorize Eric to sign that contract? Or do you want to sign it individually?
Is there a motion for our town administrator to sign the contract with Good Energy?
So moved.
When-
Second,
All those in favor?
Teresa A. Marsh, yes?
Chaz Sexton Duranian, yes.
And Veronica Cal, yes. All right,
Okay,
all right, thank you.
thank you, Ross.
Thanks,
Thank
Ross.
you. And thank you for
Russ.
pulling me up on the agenda. I appreciate that.
All right.
Have a good one.
Have a good night.
Night. All right. So it is now 6:34 and we have a meeting for 6:30 with Squanicook Greenway. So Bill,
Now, would you like me to share my screen with this document, or do you want to?
either way is fine. Do you want me to? Let me see if I can.
Whatever one Hartley lets us first. It's up to the gods of Zoom.
Okay, so let me get to. All right. Hartley, could I screen share? Let me see if I can. I'm not able. Yes. I am not done. Okay. All right, can everybody see that? Is that good enough? All right, so I'm gonna turn it over to you, Bill, and, where should I go? To the
All right, so
picture?
right to the first picture, and if you could zoom in on that, well, not beginning pictures there.
This picture, or,
But it's the
Oh,
community.
sure, let's start with the first picture there.
okay, this one.
Okay.
Let me see
Um,
that.
Okay, I just wanted to thank the board for letting me come before you today. Just in case someone doesn't know me, I'm Bill Rideout. I'm the treasurer of Squanicook Greenways, which is the nonprofit that is in the process of building the Squanicook River Rail Trail. Our mission is not just to build a rail trail, but to try to improve access to all people that are near the rail trail so they can bike or walk to it easier. And that is from our mission statement. So I just want to say that the town has been really great and has been really great in improving access to the rail trail here in the center of town. They have this terrific winter share streets project that has really done some nice work. I've also been working with the town on hopefully doing some sort of similar work in the Timberley Park area, trying to get access to the rail trail. And if you want to zoom down to that next picture, the map.
Do I need to bring it in?
Okay, so that's good enough.
Okay,
So our group, we're trying to use some of the remaining shared streets money and some of the ARPA money to improve access from Timberley Park to the rail trail. Unfortunately, these roads aren't wide enough for real bike lanes, but Warren Road and South Street is wide enough for a bike lane on one side. So we've got a plan to put bike lanes on the northbound side of Warren Road from Beach Street, past South Harbor, all the way up to 119. For South Harbor Road in the other direction, we're going to just put the shared street markers, which are psychological, basically, in their effect. So that's a great thing, and we're really happy with doing that. But in the fall of 2020, we were approached by a generous Townsend resident who wishes to be anonymous about the possibility of funding a project that takes an alternate route. So if you want to scroll down 2 screens, that one's just got a few more details. So the possible alternate route is the old Meeting House Road. There used to be a bridge there on Old Meeting House Road. It was washed out in the hurricane of 1938. And since that time, that road has not been passable. There was actually some discussion back when the South Street Bridge was being replaced about putting in a temporary bridge there, but it never actually came to fruition. So that bridge has been gone since 1938. Back over in Pepperell, over the Nashua River, there's the Fitch's Bridge pedestrian walkway, which is a really nice, if you go back to the top, sorry. It's not Fitch's Bridge, but it's a very similar bridge. It's a bridge of this type of steel siding and controlled access into it. That is for bicycles and pedestrians, and I actually use it sometimes on my bicycle from my house to MIT Haystack in Westford. So it's been a very popular thing, and the people who brought it really loved it. And I think this inspired this one particular generous donor to consider that kind of bridge for the Squanicook River where Old Meeting House Road is. So I can go back to that map there.
So this would be a pedestrian bridge only.
It would be pedestrians, bicycles, and horses.
Yeah.
We would limit it to 40 inches of an opening, so we don't want ATVs to go through it unless it's public safety, so the bollards would be removable. So yes, a police ATV can get across it if they have the key. So the road is a town road, still, it is an unmaintained town road, past the Aho's house there on the south side and past the last house on the north side, which happens to be also where the Squanicook River Rail Trail crosses, well south of 119. The real advantage of this trail, besides just being slightly closer for the people from Timberlake Park to get to the center of town, is that the intersection of the road and the rail trail come before 119. If you have to deal with getting onto the rail trail from South Street, you have to deal some way or another with Route 119. And we've tried to make it better, but there's no way it's as easy as going up basically a gravel road and then hitting the rail trail. And you're well away from 119. So I think it would be a lot more friendly for children. I will admit that intersection of Old Meeting House Road and South Harbor Road, South Row Road, probably could use some work about improving its safety there too. But that's doable with the same kind of work we've done in the center of town and with what we're doing right now with Kittleson in the Timberlake Park area. So the original vision we had of doing this plan was to do it all as Squanicook Greenways. So we would, pay for the improvements to the road there. We were basically thinking of some sort of gravel surface, not, because it's not meant for cars, it's meant for bicycles and pedestrians. And the same thing from the Aho's house down to the bridge there. So at that point, we hired our illustrious Stan Dillis from Dillis and Roy Engineering. And Stan did quite a bit of engineering work, and he has done it already. He prepared an NOI, and we did a preliminary hearing in front of the Conservation Commission. But as Stan was working through the process, he discovered that in the northern part of the road there, north of the bridge, there is area that is now listed as federal floodplain. And he said, according to the rules, since it's not our road, we would need to replace that road with additional land that we purchased somehow, which we had no idea how to do. So that basically stopped the approach of Squanicook Greenways doing the whole thing itself. Then Stan also suggested, well, perhaps the town would be interested in doing that work if we provided the financial resources to get it done. So basically, if the town decides, there's advantages for public safety and so on and so forth, for people to be able to access that bridge more easily. And so the town would be willing to do it, and especially given that we're willing to do the construction and the permitting costs through Squanicook Greenways, it might be something the town would be interested in. So I do have, if you have more detailed questions about the permitting, I have Stan here.
I add something.
Yeah, please do.
With this thing been ongoing now for 2 or 3 years.
Yeah.
We've put a lot of thought and ideas into this, and one idea that we have is improve the existing surface if it is, and don't alter the land that's subject to flooding. Just improve it, and once a year, once every 5 years, there may be water there. If the water may flow across the road like it does now. But we wouldn't be filling in a floodplain, and if it flooded, it's my experience going down there many times is that when there's been water there, it's been 6 inches deep. Somebody could either, if it's raining and it's flooded, you're not gonna be riding a bike through there or walking through there. And we came up with this idea of maybe having some cross culverts that were below the existing surface that would just provide hydraulic relief so the water could flow back and forth. And occasionally it may be flooded and you may not be able to go through there, but 98% of the time it's going to be dry.
Which is plenty good enough for, our usage. We're not, people aren't going to be commuting this way. Having it.
Then we would not have to overcome the compensatory storage for the loss of storage.
So I have also approached from the, since it is a public safety possible issue, I've approached both the police chief and the fire chief, and both were enthusiastic about it. In fact, Chief Sartell is on the phone right now. So if you have any questions, public safety wise, they are there also. So I don't know, is there anything else I missed, Joan or Stan?
The other obstacle for us in permitting to overcome here is getting permission from natural heritage, because that's in a mat habitat area. So with that, could be something that we have to work with them to overcome that.
Right, it's not a fully permitted project by any means. I mean, Stan's believes it's doable, but it's certainly not. We don't have any permits at all.
It's the high hurdles, not the low ones.
It's a challenge.
So,
Oh, one thing I did want to add about the bridge. I showed pictures, if you go further down, of the existing,
okay, then.
I forget what was the wall there called. The existing button, right. So that was where the bridge was when it got washed out in 1938, and things have only gotten worse since then. So Stan's design has the bridge coming well back from that and coming well higher on either end. So this is actually it'll be a longer bridge by far than the,
So
This-
there'd be no alteration to any bank on this block or anything like that.
Okay,
and this is actually a picture I took last winter while we were building the rail trail. And that puddle that was there shows that people use this road intensely in winter, even when bicyclists and pedestrians probably wouldn't very much. In fact, there was a car stuck in there earlier that morning. When-
beautiful, okay. So people drive down there to fish or whatever?
Yes.
Like them.
Yeah, it's. And
There
that was a little bit of a,
thing.
there was a little bit of a contradiction there with the endangered species people, because they were concerned with bicycles and pedestrians going there through the habitat, but in the next breath, they said, well, there's the fisherman's access down there that we want people to be able to drive through. So they seem to be okay with people driving down there, but not people walking or riding a bike there.
Was that national heritage or
Mass
wildlife?
That was
Wildlife.
wildlife.
There is one thing.
There's two competing entities there too. DCR owns one side of the road and wild fishing game owns the other side. So they purposely don't talk to each other, even though they both have mass fisheries and wildlife, because they have different interests. And they will tell you if you ask Gang or somebody endangered species, we don't really talk to each other because we have different interests, and we don't want to create a conflict. So them being on each side of the road, we'll have two masters to serve.
On each side of the road or on each side of the river?
On each side of the road, they own, I forget which way it is, but you know,
Okay,
DCR owns the east and fishing game.
It's actually on both sides of the river too.
Yeah.
It's the Aho property, but Fish and Wildlife bought the little sliver of land abutting the river there. And
Okay.
just as the bridge crosses, it's Fish and Wildlife on the east and DCR on the west. So, and there is actually there's a little hill coming down from the south side. So Stan has some plans in his thing about how if we're slow to put an embankment, put a retaining wall on. So the bicycles can get down.
so should I go to this one? Are we ready for this one? This picture?
Yeah, so basically the second plan is, okay, so we divide the project into two parts. Quantico Greenways would be totally responsible for the bridge and everything south of the bridge. And we'll do the permitting for that, permit it separately. And then the town would be responsible for the northern part, except financially, we would be paying for it, and presumably we both, I don't know, since it would be a free thing to town, I don't think you'd have to put Stan out to bid, so. But I don't know, it's whatever ways you do it, but I'm just saying we break it into a town-led project and a Quantico Greenways-led project. And if you're willing to do that I have actually spoken to James Smith too about working on this project, should the town decide to do this, get his input too, and was enthusiastic about it.
So when you say that the town needs the project on this side, what do you mean by that?
I mean, when we submit papers, it's not Quantico Greenways asking to do this work, it is the town of Townsend.
And why wouldn't it be the town of Townsend on this side too?
It's either way you want, it really doesn't matter to us.
Right, I mean, the town actually owns the.
Yeah, it's all the county
Owns the
road.
road, right?
If you,
So
if you
we would
think,
have to sign on the dotted line.
if you think that would be simpler, we're totally open to how you would like to do it.
In road projects, there's oftentimes private entities end up doing work on a road without the town being responsible for the procurement. Every time, a utility goes in and digs up a street and then paves it over again, we don't have anything to do as the town with the procurement for that contracting. They're doing it. So allowing someone to do road work on a town road as a private entity is certainly not something that's unusual. I think that it would be the procurement part that would be the big thing for the town. We would have to procure the work on the north side as we would procure any other town work, whether it would be done by our own employees or whether we would hire a contractor. We'd have to go through our own procurement process to get that.
Right, and another deal would be if you go with the low bidder construction or something like that, we would pay for the low bidder.
I guess I'm trying to understand why we wouldn't do that on this side as well, if the town owns the road.
Well, we could, but as I say, private entities fix roads all the time without the town having to procure it. So if Squanicook Greenways wanted to do it,
We
we would just have to give them permission to work in our road.
whatever way works
But we have
easier
to
for
do
you.
that the other side as well.
But the other side, we would have to procure it and go out and get bids and follow 30B. We'd have to do everything.
On this side.
Yeah, we're trying to minimize what you guys are doing.
Yeah.
That's really what we're trying to
If we could let Squanicook Greenways do the entirety of the work, that would be easier because they would be procuring the contracts and they would be hiring whoever they wanted to do and paying whatever they negotiated. If we have to be in charge, we've got to go through the procurement process as a public entity that is required under the statute.
And
Whereas they don't.
who would be holding the liability on that, Eric?
So if we allowed them to do the work, we would require that their contractor would indemnify the town.
Okay.
And have liability insurance, just like any other contractor that did work on a public street would have to indemnify the town. So if their work was shoddy, we'd have to be able to come back to them and make them fix it.
And would
In
we
this
have,
case, oh no, go ahead. I'm sorry, Chad.
would we have to have like a public hearing or anything like that for it, or would it just be a decision of the board?
I think it would be a decision of the board, similar to how we did the addition on the senior center.
Yeah, and how we do road opening permits. This is
Right.
not really significantly different than saying Unitel, you can go and dig up the stretch of road to put in a electrical conduit. This is just allowing a private entity to go up and do work on a stretch of road, and we're just giving them permission. So you're not gonna have any permanent rights to it. We're just giving them permission to do work on it.
Right.
So speaking of, liability, it was our assumption that you would want Squanicook Greenways to be the owner of the bridge. But if you wanted to take control of it, we'd be willing to live with that too.
So that's something I think we would have to probably ask town council about how to do that.
Yeah.
Because
we're perfectly fine with being, the owner of the bridge, and we're not gonna insure it. If it gets washed away, it gets washed away. But, but we're gonna try to have a good engineer so that it doesn't get washed away.
And
So this is where Bill is trying to get us to sell us a bridge. Is that what?
yeah, we gotta buy a bridge. I hear ya.
It's the Brook Lid Bridge.
And I don't know. That's an interesting question.
Yeah.
Ownership of a pedestrian bridge over that's using a right of way that's a public right of way. I would need to talk to town council about it.
As I said, we are flexible, we can go either way and let you guys decide.
There's one of these in Peterborough as well. It goes from the parking lot to that little square of shops.
Yep.
It's pretty close to the first picture.
The one in Groton is owned by the town of Groton.
There was a bridge there that they took down,
Yeah.
and replaced it with that.
Yeah, it was never operational. So I,
I lived there 30 years ago. And it was going bad.
Right.
Okay, so what do you need from us? I guess is the question. What would you like today or our next meeting if we want to spend some time thinking about this? What's your timeline for this? What do you think?
Our timeline was, for us, we don't have any other way forward except with your help. So I mean, I think you should take your time and think about it. Especially if you think about there might be different approaches to it.
And maybe talk to town council about ownership of things.
Yeah, I mean,
I
yeah,
don't know.
I can tell you Stan's pretty sure, and I'm pretty sure that we're gonna get the same kind of restriction that the rail trail has, that we're only gonna build during the winter season. So, at earliest, it will be next November that we would, assuming we can get the permitting done by then and Stan will say, hey, don't bet your life on it.
you gotta get
So-
state permits too, so that's a whole separate level
Oh,
of
yes.
fun.
Yeah.
But then I guess the answer is, there's probably not any urgency. They don't need an answer tonight.
No.
If we wanted to put it back
I
on.
would say, if
I'd
you
like
guys
to put
needed
it back
data,
on for December 6th and think about questions and.
And I could talk to town
Town
council.
Council weigh in on,
Yeah.
all the things, the status of the road, how that would work contractually with them to do the work. Permitting, because the town essentially would have to be the applicant if they own the road.
and-
I'd also like to hear conservation's thoughts on the matter too.
we just happen to have James Gates, but he can wait for next.
That's, I saw that. That's why I said that.
We talked about it and recommendation is go to National Heritage and get their opinion and their input and then come back to us.
Right, and that's actually what
They're the ones that.
we had a meeting with conservation, and then really this issue came up when Stan was dealing with the higher level state and federal issues.
Right.
So I don't have a problem putting it on our next agenda, Madam Chair.
I would like to do that too. Teresa, how about you?
That's fine.
Okay, and then we can.
In the interim, I'll ask Adam
Yeah. just-
about the ideas about having an entity doing work on our roads and ownership of the bridge and.
Okay, and then we can, and any other questions that any of us can forward to you.
Yes.
Okay. On next agenda, so we need to put this on December 6th. Perfect. Does that work for you guys then?
Sure.
All right. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank
Any
you.
other questions? Anything else from any of you?
Nope. Thank you very much for your time and effort here. This is wonderful.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Thanks.
All right, and it will be on the agenda for December 6th. So look for that if you want to be available for questions or anything
Yeah,
else.
no, we'll be here.
Okay, great. All right, thank you very much.
You.
I'm gonna figure out how to stop sharing my screen. Like that. All right, we're gonna move on to 3.1. These are our appointments. All right, we have two appointments on the agenda. Is there a motion to appoint Tyler Carter as an on-call firefighter?
Madam Chair, I make a motion that we appoint Tyler Carter as an on-call firefighter.
Is there a second?
I second.
Any comments?
Yes.
All right, then on to voting. How do you vote, Teresa?
Teresa English, yes?
Joe Sexton Duranian, yes.
And Veronica Kelly. All right, our second appointment is for Mark Vitale as a full-time firefighter, paramedic. subject to all employment.
Madam Chair, I'm making a motion that we appoint Mark Vitale as full-time firefighter / paramedic.
A
Is there a
second.
Any further comments? Discussion? All right, all those in favor, Teresa
Teresa A. Marsh, yes?
Chad
Chad.
Sexton Duranian, yes.
and Veronica Kelly. All right, welcome, Tyler and Mark. Moving on to meeting business. Approve and sign outside of a meeting all 2023 renewals for liquor license contingent upon a valid certificate of inspection and receipt of required documentation and payment. So is there a motion?
I make a motion that we approve and sign outside of the meeting all 2023 renewals for liquor license contingent upon a valid certificate of inspection and receipt for of required documentation and payment.
A
There's
second.
Any comments or discussion?
Wasn't this on the agenda earlier?
We have, not this one. There, we had common vittlers. We had
The junk
the
licenses.
junk licenses, the
Okay, I
class
thought it
one,
was the-
class two.
Yeah, we've had, this is the third one of these at least that we've had.
Yeah.
It's been identical the last 3 weeks.
They're all overlapping, you might remember.
So these are the liquor licenses, and I think this is the last set of approvals to sign out of session as it comes in. So I had one question. If a business is no longer in business but holds a liquor license, how does that work? Do we know? I'm just curious.
So I think you've asked that's an interesting question. I don't think there's, I don't know that there's anything that requires the business to be open and going as long as they're paying their renewals.
But
That-
what about
that I'm
a
aware
valid
of.
certificate of inspection?
Well, you'd have to have a valid COI in order to go forward.
Okay,
So if you don't get your COI, then you don't. But a COI is just checking the egresses of a building and, you know, making sure that all the smoke detectors are working and operational. You don't have to be open and operational to get your COI.
okay,
As a matter of fact, most times COIs are done, the bars aren't open anyway. So they can't tell whether the business is actually operating as a bar.
okay,
Because they're doing their COIs during the day when the staff's there. It does seem odd that if something's closed, and we know the business is closed, that they're still paying for their liquor license and still
Still
retaining
holding
it.
right,
Um,
that's kind of my question.
and so I don't know that the ABCC and I think Sabrina was kind of asked the same question,
Yeah, okay,
if we tell them that the business is closed, the ABCC closes it down. But we usually say that afterward, somebody says, I'm done.
right,
But if they say, I want to keep paying,
okay. Just curious.
they make the property more valuable. I know that
Makes
know,
sense.
that may be a reason why someone continues to pay it, because they could in theory transfer that to a new owner,
Okay,
and that a new owner wouldn't have to go through the whole process.
right,
But they would still have to have a valid COI, and if they don't do that, then they can't get the renewal.
okay. All right, any other questions? So Teresa, how do you vote?
Teresa A. Marsh, yes?
Chad Sexton Duranian, yes.
And Veronica Kelly. All right, so 4.2, open and close the special town meeting warrant. So I think what I'm gonna, did I open the warrant first? Have
Just
a motion?
to open the warrant.
So is there a motion to open the special town meeting warrant?
I'll make a motion that we open the Commonwealth of Massachusetts Special Town Meeting warrant.
A second.
All those in favor?
Teresa A. Marsh, yes?
Chad Sexton Duranian, yes.
And Veronica Kelly, yes. All right, so are we gonna review the Special town meeting warrants.
And I just wanted, Chaz, I just wanted you to know that I've sent you 2 copies of this. So I apologize.
Okay.
The second copy is the one that we're looking at, because there's some tweaks were made after the FinCom meeting that was this afternoon.
Do we
All right.
have-
So it wasn't my medication then. You did send me 2.
I did send you 2, and they look very, very similar.
Yes, they did. Okay.
Are we gonna go through each article or are we just gonna ask questions?
Yeah, so the soft copy that you have here
Uh-huh.
is the valid copy.
And is it in the SharePoint?
It is not in the SharePoint.
Okay, never mind then.
I apologize.
Not a problem. All right, let's go through it then.
So it's the one you sent at 6:06, Eric?
Yes, very, very late in the process.
Okay.
But yeah, so I did meet, just so the board knows, the FinCom had a 4 o'clock meeting. They did not have a quorum, but they had a working session where they didn't make any motions but they asked some questions, and they had a couple of suggestions that weren't substantive, but more stylistic about the warrant that I thought made sense. And so I made a couple of minor changes. That's why I wanted to give you an updated version after that.
Okay.
So would you like me to just kind of go through
Yes. Yeah, go through each article.
each article?
and we'll,
Yes. Okay.
um,
So Article 1 is just it's kind of a pro forma article about, to hear reports of the boards, committees and commissions. There's no financial ramifications of that article, but the FinCom is likely to have a report on the warrant. And so this would allow that report to go forward. So the next chunk of articles are the financial articles, 2 through 19. Article 2 is the one that we've already discussed with TCAM, which is having the town appropriate the 5% of Comcast gross revenues for the fourth quarter of FY22 to TCAM, which will allow us to then give them the money when they make the request for the fourth quarter funds.
Okay,
The Article 3 is an amendment to the annual town meeting, Article number 15 from May 3rd. There was a clerical error. This was an article where there was a list of open warrants that were all being liquidated and put into stabilization.
capital stabilization.
Capital stabilization. One of the articles had a clerical error because the retroactive salary adjustments had withdrawals out of that warrant article right before town meeting. And so those withdrawals didn't make it into the town meeting. So the numbers were off. So this is just to correct the correct numbers for that town meeting, and then for that warrant article, and then the total that was going into capital stabilization.
Okay.
Article number 4 is a request to repurpose the remaining $28,258 from 2019 all town meeting, Article 9, which was originally designated for the repair of the roof at the rec center. We did get good pricing on that. That came in at below budget. So the roof has been completed and has been fully paid for. And now there are other kind of town hall complex repairs that are needed. So we'd like to designate these funds. Those specific repairs would be the stairs at the exterior of the rec center, which need repair. The flat roof at Memorial Hall is beginning to leak and needs to have repairs. And then the remainder would be used to supplement the $20,000 in capital funds for the exterior maintenance and repair of town hall.
Okay,
So that's Article 4. Article 5, this is something that we brought up to the board before. This is $8,000 to repair the elevator in town hall that needs to be repaired by the end of December in order for the elevator to stay operable. So we discussed this when we got the report from the elevator inspector that it was going to have to be done and that we were going to have to allocate some funds at town meeting to do this repair.
Spend an awful lot of money on that elevator.
Elevators are incredibly expensive, both to install and to maintain and to operate.
Mhm.
But you are not wrong that's expensive. Although, as someone in the FinCom said, $8,000 is actually cheap for an elevator repair. You usually can't get them done for less than 15.
We can get a telephone for $5,000. Why not repair for $8,000, right?
Article 6. This is something that the board is already aware of in Maine, which is appropriating free cash to cover the unbudgeted increases in the town's general insurance expenses. As we had a discussion about those insurance expenses when the bills came in and we had to make determinations about that. So this covers that difference. Plus we got an audit from Mega, which is our workers' comp insurance. They audited FY22 and made the determination that after the audit, we owed an additional premium because their rates are set by salaries. So at the beginning of the year, they set their rate based on your anticipated salary. And then at the end of the year, they do an evaluation to what your actual salaries were. And if they were lower, they give you a credit, which I think Veronica had said that happened last year. We got a credit, but this year their salaries were higher than they had anticipated. And so there was we owe an additional premium.
I think that's because we had more people employed.
Yeah, and so that I think that was due to the hiring that happened in FY22.
Right.
But this covers both the deficit from the under budgeting and the additional premium. They are both covered in this 29,000. Article 7. This is something that I think we've been talking about a lot lately, which is the cost of energy. As I think the board will remember, we had to make some transfers at the end of FY22 to cover unanticipated energy costs because of the increase in energy rates. This $75,000 is to be put into the energy account to cover that delta, so that we're not trying to do that at the end of the year.
Do you think that's okay?
If we get an energy,
aggregation, will that help?
the aggregation of the town hall energy should help.
Okay.
Because the electrical costs are a large driver of our energy costs, but they're not all. It's also about natural gas and any oil fire. I don't know if we have any oil fired burners left in town, but those rates are also went up, and they were included in as part of that increase.
Okay.
This $75,000 would just get us to what the bills were last year without an increase.
Which might be good if we do the energy aggregation.
Right.
We might actually.
This might be
Yeah,
enough, so we wouldn't have to do another transfer at the end of the year,
Right.
which is my hope.
But this also needs to be budgeted a little better, I think.
Yeah, I think next year we're going to have to look over the last few years and see what our energy costs actually are, and be more kind of a true budgeting than kind of just rolling over one number from the previous year. Article 8, this is to cover the excess costs for Melanson services that we've discussed. There are two parts to this. The first part is, as we knew when we signed the Melanson contract, the accountant salary line was not going to be sufficient to cover the Melanson contract for FY23. So there was a $10,000 delta in between what the contract with Melanson was and what was in the accountant salary line. The remainder of this is the overage from FY22, where we had budgeted $35,000 to close FY22, and unfortunately, the actual costs to close FY22 were significantly larger.
So I don't quite get that. So I thought we had a contract to cover the costs. So how does it go over the budget for 22? And when we've said, here's X amount of dollars, and they agreed to X amount of dollars to close the budget.
Unfortunately, that's not how the contract was drawn up. The contract was drawn up as we believe this is what it will cost. And so it was anticipated costs of $35,000. It was not a cap on the amount of fees. And it was, what we basically had was an hourly contract, and they believed that the hourly
So it wasn't
$35,000.
not to exceed.
No, it was not a not to
I
exceed
thought it
contract.
was a not to exceed. And why are we running in 2023? Then that's a whole separate company, right? Accounting company. That's not the same that did 22, or is it?
Yeah, it's Melanson. Because this is not our auditing company, which we switched.
Okay,
This is the account. We have
Oh, okay.
Melanson closing FY22, and they're the accountant for FY23.
okay, thank you.
Article 9, this is a new heating and AC unit in the town clerk's vault. And Rob has got an estimate of the cost to put in a new unit as
I have a question on that.
Sure.
From the Green Communities meeting this afternoon, is this something that we could potentially submit to Green Communities?
I can certainly check.
And if we can, if this is something that could be part of the RISE audit for that grant, could we not put this on the special town meeting, but we'll know by May whether or not it's doable for the Green Communities,
Right.
assuming we get that grant.
Yeah.
We could put it on the annual town meeting.
And so there's two answers to that, there's two issues I would raise about that. The first is we need to make a determination as to whether or not it's eligible. That would be an eligible expense for this particular type of unit. And the second is whether or not it's possible to Band-Aid the current unit and to survive until next year, because we wouldn't be able to do the work on that until probably a year from now.
September. It would be September.
You know.
Because the grant gets granted end of July, beginning of August.
Right. And so
timeframe.
we'd be talking about, it'd have to make through almost another full 4-season cycle with the current unit. And I just don't know what the state of that unit is. So I'll have to talk to Rob about whether that's something that could be, if it's eligible, whether it could be,
I'm just
And-
thinking snow and ice, and we're already in the hole in the snow and ice budget from the purchase of salt. If you
But the
look at
risk-
the budget that got sent to me yesterday. My concern is free cash to cover that, especially given that roads might be treated tonight, depending on what happens.
it's not.
But the risk that we're talking, this is the vote, right? This is where the union is to basically keep the temperature correct for papers, not to any.
It's for the vital records stored in the
For
town.
vital records, so there's no destruction of vital records.
Right. And so
And I
that's-
assume it does more than that, it does,
Yeah, this is the climate control system for the vault where all the vital records in town are stored.
But it's maintaining vital records if,
Right,
like you
which is-
said, we need to, I would be uncomfortable holding off on this if it should be fixed sooner than later.
Yeah, and so I think I need to, number one, figure out whether or not that would be a viable expense under Green Communities. And two, I need to talk to Rob to make a determination as to whether or not we could get a quote to try to keep it going, keep the current, if it is, whether it's viable to keep it going through the end of the summer.
Okay.
And those are just two questions I don't have the answers to right now.
And these are the types of things that should have forethought. This should have been something that we have forecasted or the department has looked at to say there's a possibility that this is going down. The same thing with the elevator. These are kind of major expenses, and these are things that we need to plan for. There has to be some kind of contingency for it instead of, there's a lot of other things that we need in town that we could have planned on this at a certain time or found grants for it or, whatever. So I think we really need to look at the facilities area in this next go around with the budget.
The next article, which is Article 10, is another one that there needs to be a little bit of follow-up on, which is it's two kind of separate but related issues of the Council on Aging and the library, which is a leaky roof and degrading insulation in the ceiling. And I know that somebody had mentioned, it might have been you, Veronica, that mentioned that they thought that this might have been part of the addition to repair the roof.
Does that sound familiar to you at all, Chaz?
Yes, it does.
I thought we had a discussion about this.
Yes, we did. And this was something that was supposed to be taken care of.
I thought it was being taken care of at the same time that the roof was being put on the new addition. This needs to have a little more.
So I will reach out to, I think I'll talk to Gary and see whether or not I can get a scope of work of what work was done for the repair,
Okay.
whether there was anticipated that there was going to be some roof work done, and where this particular roof section falls with respect to what we knew was a problem roof at the time.
We had an article that was on here last year that was for $50,000 for a roof repair for the library. It was determined that there had been no preventative maintenance on there. And Mr. Shepherd said that he had no idea that there was some issues with that. And he said that he would take care of it while he was doing the expansion to the COA. So I'd really like to know what's going on.
Okay.
Because that roof should have been repaired last summer, to my knowledge.
I concur on that. That said, if it is still an issue, same question as for the unit for the vault. Can it be part, if we do need to take care of this, can it be on green communities? Can it hold off until the annual town?
Okay.
See, again, these are things that we could plan for and forecast for grants and for other things, as opposed to being thrown on as a warrant article. We could have had discussions and really have some problem solving done on these well before it got to this point. I would have liked to see these in July.
Sure. No, I understand. Article 11 is something that we discussed at the last Board of Selectmen meeting, which is putting on the one-time costs in the first year for the new website. And so that would be the amount that was going to be the one-time cost, and that would not be spreading it out over 4 years as we had previously been talking about.
I think it's better to do that.
And
we'll see where that goes. Okay.
Article 12 is the funds requested for the pickup truck for the facilities department. This is what had been contemplated at the annual town meeting and had been taken out of the capital plan at that time. So that request came in to add that to the special town meeting.
I would take this to annual.
I agree with that.
I wouldn't take it out of free cash. If I were going to take it out, I think it should be part of the capital plan. And we are moving. We've moved like 31,000 with the fix from the earlier article into capital stabilization. And this is we used free cash last year because we had free cash.
Right.
And we didn't have much in capital stabilization, so we weren't touching that.
Right.
So I think that should be part of that plan and go to annual town meeting. That's what I think. But I don't know what Teresa and Chaz think.
I agree with that.
All right, so
All right.
there you have it. Do we need a motion or are we good?
Well, so we probably should have a motion, but just because Chaz is on Zoom,
All right, so is there a motion to
we'll move Article 12.
to move Article 12 to the annual town meeting and with the stipulation that we may be able to take the funding from capital stabilization instead of free cash?
So moved.
Second,
All those in favor, Teresa
Teresa A. Moore, yes.
Chaz Sexton Duranian, yes.
and Veronica Kelly, yes.
Article 13 is one that came from the Library Board of Trustees. Their indication to me was that they believed that there was funds that was cut from the library budget that was prior to the school board coming back and making their cuts that allowed restoration of things into the budget, and their funds were not restored. So they're requesting their funds be restored.
Okay, I will just say that the funds were not restored because the library trustees had stated that they didn't need these funds and they were going to use them instead for salary increases for their staff. And at the time, and this was just a couple days before town meeting, we were not, people that were not in a union were not being moved a step on the scale because we had to preserve funds. So they had opted to, they said that they didn't need these and that they would instead redirect for their staff for salary increases. So, yeah, it wasn't restored. I think that, again, annual town meeting to me seems like the place to put these back in as opposed to special town meeting.
I agree. I don't see that this is something we'd want to get going on special town meeting.
that would be unanimous.
So I'll make a motion. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, I think that would be appropriate. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion that we remove Article 13 for funds, funding the following line items for the library: 1,000 for library equipment repairs and 3,625 for library other purchases to the annual town meeting.
Second,
Any further discussion? All right, how do you vote?
Teresa A. Moore, yes.
Chaz Sexton Duranian, yes.
Kelly?
So the next item is a vote to transfer $15,000 from the sale of lots cemetery fund. And so it doesn't have a fiscal impact. It's just taking money from that fund for the cemeteries to do that work.
I'm okay with that.
Is that a revolving fund that they have for that?
Still, a lot cemetery funds generally a revolving fund in most municipalities. And it's for this exact purpose, where the sales lots, the money goes in there and you take it out for the maintenance of the cemetery. So then the next three are, the next four are water department allocations. they want to close out funding for a pipe fusing machine. And reallocate $15,000 to purchase a dump trailer. And the remainder totaling $10,000 to be transferred to the purchase of a ground penetrating radar. Article 16 is then them closing out an all-town meeting warrant article for a plotter scanner and transferring the remaining funds, which is excess funds on above what they purchased the plotter scanner for, to also be purchasing the ground penetrating radar. And then Article 17 is to raise and appropriate from the water enterprise revenue $5,000 for the purchase of the ground penetrating radar.
Okay, so tell me about Article 16. This was from just May's annual town meeting, the plotter scanner. Did they purchase that?
I believe they purchased the plotter scanner and had excess funds.
And this is the excess funds, okay.
I think it was like $5,000, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, I don't have the all time. I apologize. I just-
So what is the pipe fuse machine that they didn't? The close out that fund for the $25,000 that's coming from a pipe fusing machine.
That would be an excellent question for the water department. I do not know what a pipe fusing machine is or why they didn't purchase it.
But
I know what ground penetrating radar is,
yeah,
so I can answer that question, but I
but you're
don't.
saying they're looking to reallocate that to purchase something, but they've already purchased it, the radar. I thought you just said.
No. They purchased the plotter and they want to transfer the rest of the money after they purchase the plotter to help them purchase the radar as well.
Gotcha. Okay.
Can I ask a question? Now I sound like Veronica. Can I ask a question? You have a department head meeting where all of these suggestions come in, correct?
They typically speaking, they were emailed, but I put out to the department heads and they all some departments got back to me, yes.
And they email back to you for what it is. When you come to a department like the water department that has commissioners, or the parks and cemetery who have commissioners, is this something that they should be discussing in a meeting and then bring back in with what they come for the article, something that's been approved by the commissioners, or does the superintendent have the authority to do that?
So that's an excellent question. I mean, I think, I generally speaking, it should. I think if you've got another authority that controls the funding, it should be something that they are making a request for. So the water commissioners should have opined on these things at a water meeting, and the cemetery and park commissioners should opine on that at a cemetery and park commission meeting. That would be my understanding of how it was generally done.
Okay.
Because they're the ones that hold those purse strings for those particular departments.
Right.
So like the library trustees are the ones who made their motion for that money, and the cemetery commissioners made the motion for that money. So
Right. So they would have had a meeting and they would have discussed it and said, okay, this is what, and I'm only saying that because on planning, if we were putting together for an article, we would have a discussion and all decide on what we're going to put in for the article. So it would be the same way that the commissioners would have a chance to opine on what they feel is the right thing, right?
Right. And I'm not privy to how the Board of Water Commissioners delegates their authority to the superintendent for things that are, I don't know how much authority they give him over kind of handling the money.
Mhm.
It's possible. I mean, one of these, the fourth one is taking a significant sum of $50,000 to repair and maintain the SCADA, which I have no idea what that is. I don't know if anybody else does, but I'm assuming it's a, you know,
Supervisory control and data acquisition.
right. I mean, you know, so
It's,
that's a significant amount of money is coming from the water revenue. And I
well,
think
SCADA is very important. That's their,
that's their operating system, right? Like that's,
well, yes, it monitors that, but it also monitors intrusions and people trying to access certain things. I mean, it's very, very important.
yeah. And so, you know, I think that, you know, that's, it feels like that's something that the Board of Water Commissioners should have a say in, that transfer of a sum not large from the water enterprise revenue account. I mean, that, because they're the ones that set the budget for the water department.
I don't have as much of a problem with that one as I do. I don't understand why these are coming now instead of at the annual meeting to see what they had left over at the end of the year and.
Well, that would be my, that would be the question after my questions, Teresa. I agree with you. I mean, these are something that we should be looking at
Yeah, I mean,
in the spring.
yeah, so at least two of these, so the Article 15 and Article 16 are merely reallocations of funds that were already appropriated from town meeting, which I think is a perfectly appropriate thing to do at fall town meeting. You're just reallocating funds that you already know you're not going to use or not going to need, but the town's already voted to allocate it.
Right.
You know, it appears as though they wanted to make sure they had enough money to pay for that ground penetrating radar.
Yeah.
So they wanted to say they add an extra $5,000 because my guess is that the price is not fixed and it's going to come somewhere in between $15,000 and $18,000. I don't know. I mean, the fact that they need $50,000 to repair and maintain the SCADA, that makes me feel like it might be a more imminent problem, that they're asking for the money now and not waiting until the entire meeting. But I can certainly get that answer if the board wants me to reach out to water and get some more specifics about Article 18.
Well, I'm the liaison and I plan on looking into it myself.
Okay.
While you're doing that, can you tell me why they didn't need $25,000 for a pipe fusing machine?
You got it.
Thank you.
Get to the bottom of that pipe fusing
Yeah.
issue. And so after the water department, the fourth water department one, the last one is a request from the Board of Health to establish a new revolving account entitled the Tobacco Fines Revolving Account, and to authorize the deposit of any tobacco fines into the Tobacco Fines Revolving Account for purposes of tobacco education and education materials.
Where does he go now?
Well, anything that isn't specifically authorized to go anywhere else goes into the general fund. So my guess is this is general fund money. Otherwise,
And those are huge fines, right?
those are large fines. I think the first fine is $1,000. The second is $2,000. The third is like $3,500. It escalates as
Yeah.
they go on. And I think there are a couple of people that are at higher stages. They've already failed at least once. A couple of vendors in
I'm
town.
concerned, I mean, certainly we can all use tobacco education and materials, but there's so much about that going around. I'd hate to see that fund get so large and somebody in the town has to give up something that we need because it's not in our general fund anymore.
I believe that should be going to the community services area.
I think it should go to the annual town meeting.
That as well. That as well. But I think
Revolving accounts.
Yeah, I don't agree with that.
That's true.
You don't agree with annual town meeting?
No, with creating a new revolving account, that doesn't make sense to me.
yeah, that should be, I think the community services person which would be in charge of education and all of that kind of stuff. I think that should be part of.
Well, it's not real, well.
Like I said, me, I would ATM before any individual, because we just never know how big it could potentially get and how much good we can do with it.
There were comments from the FinCom that kind of are echoing some of your comments, which is concerns about taking this out of the general fund and what kind of control there would be on the tobacco fines revolving account.
Who's gonna do the education? Anyway, and I'm not, Chaz's suggestion of community services, I don't know, because this is more health related. I don't know, I don't know,
I don't know if it's something that the Neshoba Boards of Health already does,
right?
or whether we have a tobacco agent that has a plan for funds. That's
Right.
not something I'm aware of.
I just feel if you're creating a new revolving fund, that just feels like annual town meeting to me, that's all. So is there a motion to move this one to annual town meeting? This is Board of Health that put in for it.
I'll make a motion that we move Article 19 to create a special fund for tobacco fines revolving account to the annual town meeting.
A second.
And any further discussion? Otherwise, Teresa, how do you vote?
Teresa A. Marsh, yes.
Chaz Sexton Duranian, yes.
Veronica Kelly, yes. Okay.
So that's it for the financial articles. We have one general bylaw. And I believe that the chair had already discussed with the Board of Selectmen. This is something that was noted by town council that was lacking from the public lighting in the general bylaw was a non-criminal disposition kind of enforcement section. So this general bylaw was drafted by town council to specifically add that particular language in and create an enforcement for that bylaw.
Right.
The next two are submitted by the planning board. These are the changes that are proposed to the age restricted development bylaw and to the site plan review special permit. The public hearing on these will be tomorrow.
Yes,
Um,
6:45.
and so we'll have,
I think it's the next thing on our agenda to discuss for the mandatory referral.
great. Yeah, so this is just the changes that have been submitted by the planning board. We might get a tweak if they change it at the meeting tomorrow. And the final article, Article 23, is a real property article. This is something that I actually put on myself because the last authorization, this is regarding the lease from the Spalding School. And I have a draft lease to submit to the school district, but I did note, doing some research, that the last authorization we have from town meeting was to lease the Spalding School and specifically to include Pheasant Field as part of that lease. And I know that that's something that after the discussion with the baseball organizers that the Board of Selectmen specifically wanted to withdraw from the lease, is take the fields out. And so rather than kind of run the risk of putting together a lease that specifically went against the prior town meeting authorization, I wanted to put on the article that would authorize us to lease Spalding, not including Pheasant Field.
I am good with that. I have two things on here. One is I want to make sure that things are in the lease that allows the rec department to use Spalding School for summer rec. And then I'm also uncomfortable with the 20-year lease. I just think that's a long time.
I'm in complete agreement with that.
I would want it shorter, with the option to extend for a period and extend for a period similar to what we did with the Tasa lease at Squanicook Meadows. They wanted a 10-year lease, and I think we did 3, 3, 3.
So we kind of discussed this a little bit earlier, but would the board be comfortable if they said a 10-year lease with 2 5-year mutual extensions?
Veronica, didn't we have a discussion about leases when I first got on the board 2 years ago?
What sort of discussion?
That we weren't going to enter into such long-term leases anymore, or long-term contracts like that?
We preferred not to, and I
Right.
think that it was probably having to do with Tasa, because I think that was the first lease we looked at.
Mm-hmm.
So, and we went with 3 years because that's what's in there, I think it's the selectmen's policies and procedures it's written somewhere, that I know.
That's what I'm saying. There's somewhere that it's,
And if you're gonna do longer than 3 years, you have to have town meeting approval, which is why this is here. Otherwise, we could probably enter into the lease. If it were a 3-year lease, I don't think we'd have to go to town meeting. We as a board could determine whether or not to enter into the lease.
so
I
if
just-
if it's a town vote, then yes, I'm comfortable, Eric, with 10 and 5 and 5.
I'd just like to see the lease, and I think we should have it available for the townspeople to look at.
I 100% agree with that as well.
That's not a problem. And
Okay.
if you want, so I deliberately didn't put something in here about specifics about the rec program, because it's in the lease, and I've already been instructed by the Board of Selectmen to add that as part of the lease.
Yeah.
I just didn't want to get too specific in here in case there's this back and forth with the school district about the specific language.
Right.
But I can certainly put in here with provisions for the rec center.
No, if it's in the lease, it's okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's definitely in the lease. It's the first thing I put into the lease, but
Okay.
I have a copy. I will provide a copy as part of at the special town meeting for that as well. And I can change that to 10 and 2 5.
Okay, I just, 10's, it's just so long. We don't know what might come up that we would like. That's the only school building that we own, correct? That the town owns.
It's true.
And I at least think that the town should have access to that school building. More than we do at the moment.
I mean, we can have if you'd like, we can have a discussion between now and town meeting about the lease. I can provide it on the 6th. I can provide you a
Yes.
draft copy. And if there's things that you want to put in to try to strengthen kind of that provision, like the town give a little more teeth to our use of it outside of the specific rec department
Right.
use for the summer program. I can draft up some language very quickly to do that. That wouldn't be a problem.
Okay,
So I can put the town lease on the
Let's
6th, so
on the
the
6th,
board
yeah.
can see it before the meeting. That's probably a good idea anyway, because I don't think it's a good.
so keep this article in. When do we have to post this?
It will have to be posted before our next meeting. It has to be posted 2 weeks before the meeting. So I think the 29th is when it would have to be posted. But I can send out each member of the Board of Selectmen a draft of the lease under separate email. And if you have individual comments, you can send them back to me. As long as you're not sending it to each other, that's not a problem.
Okay, so are we good with 10 with 2 5-year extensions?
Good with that.
Okay.
All right, so I will make that change. That is that. Thank you very much for your input. I appreciate all the helpful comments from the board.
All right. I'm backpedaling here.
Mhm.
I'm thinking we should just do a 10-year lease. Not with the 2 5-year extensions. It's just so long.
So the 5-year extensions would be mutual extensions.
Okay, all right,
So that both sides would have to want to do 5 years, not 5-year automatic extensions, but 5-year
Okay,
mutual
okay.
extensions.
all right. I'm good with that then. All right. Okay. So is there, can we just very quickly? We kept articles 1 through 8. 9 and 10. What are we doing with them? You're checking if it's an eligible expense for 9?
Yeah, I think the idea would be to leave them on the warrant, and if we find out new information between now and then, we can just pull them at the,
Okay, and
For
same with
9,
10.
not 10.
I think for 10 as well. But
Oh.
if we find out that that's something that is supposed to be covered by another entity,
Yes,
Okay.
okay,
we can.
okay, with number 11. That's staying on. Number 12 is struck. I have a question I want to talk to you about with respect to number 12. So 12 is struck, that's to ATM.
Mhm.
13 is struck, that's for ATM. Actually, that's part of the regular budget process. Let's put that back in. Article 14 stays. 15 through 18, Chaz is checking. They stay there. Chaz is getting answers. 19 is going to ATM, so that's struck. 20 stays. 21 and 22 stay. And 23 will make that adjustment.
Yes.
All right, so is there, with this then, is there a motion to close the special town meeting warrant?
I make a motion that we close the special town meeting warrants.
And I second that.
All right, all those in favor?
Teresa A. Marsh, yes?
Chad Sexton Duranian, yes?
I'm going to Kelly. I'll start with that. All right, the next thing. Back to, all right, our next thing.
Oh, just note, can we, I'm gonna need signatures from everyone on the warrant. Do we need a motion to sign that out of session? Because we did make changes to it.
Yes.
Or to stamp it,
Okay.
or to use a stamp once it's
Is
edited.
there a motion to sign the warrant out of session?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Teresa A. Marsh, yes?
Chad Sexton Duranian, yes?
And Veronica. All right,
I apologize.
no, that's okay, that's
Right.
good catch.
I give Sabrina the permission to use my stamp.
And I do the same. Because it's,
Ditto.
well, it doesn't have to be posted until after Thanksgiving, right? The Monday or Tuesday after Thanksgiving.
Yeah, it has to be posted Tuesday after Thanksgiving. We're gonna want it signed before that, because we gotta get it to the,
Right. Okay, all right. All right, our next is to planning board, the changes to the age restricted development and site plan review special permit process. This is mandatory referral. So this isn't all that different, I don't think, from what came in before. Because we did do a mandatory referral on this before, but this changes it from 2 acres to 1 acre now. With 100-foot frontage. I think that's the major thing that's different here. And I have a question about this, and I don't know that anybody from the planning board is on, but okay, so a lot of us have lots with 200 feet frontage. Can we decide, since this is just 100 feet frontage, can we decide that we are going to turn our house into a 4-family for age restricted housing, and on the other 100 feet, put a driveway and build a new building? on the back part of our lot. So in other words, subdividing our 2-acre lots into 2 1-acre lots, each with 100 feet frontage. Can we do that? That's question number 1. Question number 2 is, once we do this, because this has the potential to make a lot of lots in town with apartments on them that are supposedly 55 and over apartments. Who monitors that they're 55 and over? Market rate apartments. This isn't affordable housing. This is market rate. Or condos or cottages or whatever. How is that monitored in town? Because right now we do not monitor the accessory apartments. And there are, I mean, if someone wanted to figure it out, there are probably a lot of unpermitted apartments in town. And certainly there are apartments that maybe originally started as apartments for family. And when they're no longer for family, they're supposed to be on the affordable housing list. I'm sure that's not happening because as far as I know, nobody monitors it. So with this, are we setting ourselves up for a town of apartment buildings? And when the demographic changes, right now, we have a lot of 55 and over people in town, but that will eventually change with time. When that demographic changes, what happens to those 55 and over market rate units that can no longer be marketed or purchased because there's no one buying them because they're not 55 and over? What happens? So all I say is I don't support the changes. I thought what we had was fine. They're taking out the mandatory open space requirement, which means that the entire lot can become housing. And pretty much it can go anywhere in town, provided there is on-street water, I believe. I just think that this is better served as being part of an overall review of the bylaws, the zoning in the town. I think if there were an overlay district for 55 and over restricted housing, I would be more amenable to this. It also looks like the parking requirement. I was just reading this and going, well, I have misgivings about this. They're taking off, if I'm reading this right, the minimum off-street parking requirement is being removed. Or are they just renumbering it? I'm not sure.
What number is the minimum off-street?
7. Is it just the renumbering that's changing? But the off-street parking requirement remains?
Yeah, the only thing they're removing in their requirement in the entirety is subsection, it's item 5 of subsection C.
That's
basic
the open
requirement.
space, yeah,
And then item 7, the permanent conservation restriction is
right.
being removed, and everything else is just being renumbered.
Oh, I thought the minimum was being dropped. The minimum common open space in the development, is that being dropped or not? I'm so confused.
Yeah, it looks like they're making 5 changes. In subsection B, they're the word item 1A, the word 2 is being substituted there for the word 1.
So they're taking out 2 and substituting 1. So that makes it from 2 acres to 1 acre. Okay,
And then they're getting rid of subsection C, item 5 in its entirety.
Okay, so that was before you could waive the minimum setbacks. But they're taking that out because farther down, they let you waive anything.
Right.
Not just the minimum setbacks.
Yeah, so basic requirements is being removed. Item 5, and then item 7. The section that says the permanent conservation restriction.
But they're
is being
keeping the
removed.
common open space.
Yeah, in section 7, it's just the permanent conservation
Okay,
restriction.
that's good.
Shall be recorded for the common open area, shall include restrictions.
And then they renumber. And in 8, they say that anything can be waived.
Yes.
I would like to see section 5 kept, I guess that's the one that says this is what you can waive, as opposed to being able to waive anything.
I always have a concern, Madam Chair, with putting items into bylaws that are difficult to enforce. And an age restriction is difficult to enforce. Because how do I, as a town official, know your age? And how can I find out your age?
Right.
And how do I know? What's the trigger for me to know that I need to go and check your age? Unless I'm watching the registry of deeds to see whenever one of these properties transfers title.
Right.
And who in town is doing that? Right now, it's nobody. There's nobody in town who is watching age restricted developments to make sure that the person who's buying them is the right age.
Nobody is looking at accessory apartments. Nobody is looking at other building that is happening on premises without permits.
And you know, in theory, somebody building without permits, you know, we have a building inspector. You know, you rely on people calling the town and saying, hey, this person's building without permits. And an inspector can go out and usually find out whether you're building without a permit. But if somebody calls and says, Eric Slagle just moved into a house and it's age restricted, how is the building inspector going to find out whether or not I'm old enough to move into that house?
That young whippersnapper.
Because on certain days I look over 55. You know what I mean? Like, that's not something that you know, if someone says you built a deck without a permit, a week later, Eric Chartrand can go out and say, hey, there's a deck there, you don't have a permit. But if somebody says, you're too young to own this house, that's,
Right.
yeah, there's no way to, you know, like, we're gonna.
I just think, I was on the planning board when we originally started talking about this, and what we were thinking about was, I think originally it was 5 acres. It got changed to 2 somewhere along the line, but it was to look at a development that is market rate, smaller homes on smaller lots.
Sure.
That people could downsize from their larger homes to these smaller homes and remain in town.
Sure.
This changes that to me. That's all. And then how do you monitor it? Because it does become, I mean, I really do think I could turn my house into 4, maybe 8 apartments.
8 apartments? 8
it's on
condo
2
units.
acres. Yeah, I mean, you've got the frontage. What stops you from taking your lot and saying, you know, let's do this? And we could put, the barn could become a house, and we could put another house back there. What stops that from, not that it's going to happen that way,
I mean,
but it could. And then what happens in 10 years when, you know, none of the 55 and over people are already there, and here's this place, and it's 55 and over restricted, I don't know.
I did talk to the planning staff,
Yeah,
and I believe they said that no one has come in to build under the existing bylaw since it was passed.
that's true, but
I'm not saying that as a good or a bad thing, just that, you know, the way it currently exists, there wasn't enough incentive so that in the past few years, understanding there was a pandemic, understanding, you know, it's not like this bylaw's been around for 20 years.
no.
It's been around for a
like
relatively short period of
maybe
time.
2 at the most.
But
Not
during
even
this,
2.
during those 2 years, there wasn't anyone who came in to build a development based on the current.
I think a
standard.
year and a half.
And I think that is what's driving the push to change it is what, rightly or wrongly, we've got no one who's biting at this apple.
I think it's still too soon.
I'm not saying that you're wrong. I'm just saying I think that's one of the things that's driving
I
the
think
change.
it's just too soon. And I think that if we're gonna go down to 1 acre, we need to specify where in town those acres are. What's our overlay district for this? That's all. And how do you monitor it? So what do we want to put for our comments? Give the original, I would say, give the original bylaw more time. That's what I would say. Or do a whole review. I don't know.
I just have to stop and think about the amount of time that we spent on that bylaw. We spent a lot of time, a lot of discussions. We did a lot of research. And I, in the time that it's been enforced, from the time that it was approved, we've had COVID, we've had a lot of things that have gone on. There's been no additional housing produced in the town, so you can't say that it's that bylaw that has done that. I will contest that as far as Madam Chair is concerned. According to the projections, the 55 and older is projected out 20 years plus. So there is a great deal of time that I personally have been concerned about being able to try to draw more people in town to increase the tax base. I mean, that's really important. But the problem that I have, and I don't want to go against what a board has been working on. I mean no disrespect in my comments here, but this is where I believe a town planner would really be able to help us move forward. I agree that some of our bylaws need to be changed, but we need to have a further understanding and direction. You know, the master plan is supposed to guide us. The housing production plan is supposed to guide us. All of these things that we've taken a lot of time and effort and volunteer hours, very important volunteer hours, to be able to get us to a place where we can take a professional, a planner, to say, okay, this is what I hear. This is what I believe your direction is, taking all of these pieces and putting it together. This is what we see your path forward. I think that's the piece that we really need, because what planning does and what zoning does and what housing authority does, each one of them is operating on their own, in their own silo, and there's nothing to really pull it all together. That's where I have a concern.
This bylaw was just put in place May of 2021. So
Yeah.
not this most recent town meeting, but the town meeting.
It's been 18 months.
So, I mean, the one thing that I probably could agree to scratch is the putting the CR on, because that was intended for when this was a bigger, more acreage. I think it was originally 5 acres when I was on the planning board.
Yeah.
And then it got dropped to 2. So, and now it's being dropped to 1. And it's only been in place for a little over a year. So,
So it kind of, to me, and I'm principles over personalities. It boils down to, are we looking to increase the tax base or are we looking to increase housing? Where's the focus? You know, my focus, I believe, is to increase the tax base so we can better support our community. That's kind of where I see it.
I didn't see it as tax base as much as housing for people who want to downsize and stay in town and can afford a market rate unit,
Mm-hmm.
as opposed to who probably wouldn't be eligible for Atwood Acres or something like that.
Well, that's really, we have no control over Atwood Acres or Townsend Woods. You know, so we can't even use that as an argument. We've had opportunity over the past 7 years to be able to build something out in that area that the town would be able to have a little more control over, and it keeps on getting voted down as well. So
This is something that could be used by the affordable housing crew, although affordable housing isn't going to do market rates.
right.
So maybe not, but anyway.
I wish there was somebody from the planning board here, and to be able to explain why these, changes were being, addressed specifically. Because I know just to get these people together and have a meeting and doing all of this, it took a lot of work in my part. And my gut tells me they have good reason behind this, and I'd like to support them, but it's hard without somebody here to tell me the rationale behind it.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think that. I do know that there's some other folks who have raised concerns about the bylaw, you know, but so I don't think it would be,
The bylaw as it is, or the
no, the
bylaw.
bylaw changes.
I personally feel that we should say no comment and allow the townspeople to make their decision.
We can
I'm
do
okay
that.
with that.
We can do that. All right. I'm gonna just mark it no comment and sign it. The hearing is tomorrow night at 6:45. And this is for. Right.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
would it make sense to take 4:10 out of order? Because I do believe that the treasurer is on. So
Yes, that would make sense.
I apologize. I probably should have said something earlier.
No, that's okay. Thank you, Melissa, for being here. All right, so let me find the paperwork for 410.
Hello, Melissa.
She's on mute.
Hello, I'm missing the voice.
Thank you, Melissa.
You're
for
on
double
coming
mute.
on.
I'm just
I
teasing.
apologize. We should probably just have a motion to take 4:10 out of order.
All right, could I have a motion to take 410 out of order?
I make a motion that we take Article 410 out of order.
Is there a
second that.
All right, Teresa, how do you vote?
Teresa A. Morse, yes.
Chad Sexton Duranian, yes.
And Veronica Kell, yes. Okay, so we're moving on to 410 to discuss the loan for the water treatment plant. So, hold on a minute. There it is. All right. All right, so this is, and I'm the one that has a question about this, because it is, borrow money for the engineering of the plans. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And it's $507,500.
Correct.
$507,500. Oh.
So if I may,
Yeah.
Madam Chair, so, back in July, I'll just give you a little background, I guess, and Eric can chime in. Back in July, David Vijant came to us and told us that the engineering portion was not being paid for from the state in that zero interest 14.9 million. Said he needed to borrow it, and that's what the engineering costs were. So we had a meeting with UFASI, our finance advisory board, with the town administrator, David Vijant, myself, and 3 people from UFASI. And thinking about it after I talked to you, Veronica, I guess I don't know what the misunderstanding was, or if there is a misunderstanding. I put together all the paperwork to get the loan based on the Board of Selectmen Board of Selectmen having voted 14.9 million for the entire cost. And that's, and if I'm misunderstanding that, do we need a separate, do we need a separate vote from the Board of Selectmen for the 507.5? 2, I was just made aware by you, Veronica, earlier tonight, that there was money put aside, ARPA and some other funds put aside for this, which I did not know about. So that's just a little background. So we went out to bid and got the paperwork, and now the paperwork is in front of you. And then I'll just let you ask your questions.
Okay, so I guess when I saw this and I'm looking at this, the total amount of the loan authorized is $14,700,000. I thought that we were going out for a zero interest loan from Mass DEP, and that we were on the list. We had gotten on it early. We had voted to apply for that loan. And so when I saw an interest rate of 4.45, that's what got me going. The amount of this issue is $507,500, and the balance of the loan uninsured is $14,192,500. So I guess I am wondering, to me, this says we're authorizing the borrowing of $14,700 from Unibank, which I know it comes from a bank, but where does this DEP zero interest loan with the 43% payback of principal enter in here? So that's number 1 question. Number 2 question, ARPA 10 is for water treatment plant engineering of $130,000. My understanding was that the engineering, this is again a year old because we did this ARPA stuff a year ago.
Yeah.
Was $200,000 for engineering. And I thought that 70 of it was coming from the water department, and they needed an additional 130,000. And so I'd have to look at my ARPA notes, and I did not bring my ARPA folder with me tonight. But so I thought the engineering was 200,000. I'm not surprised that the engineering came in higher, if in fact it did. But I guess when is this ARPA 10 going to be used for water stuff? Okay, so we're getting the amount of issue is 507,500, and the balance of the loan is 14 million. Where does the loan we applied for with DEP come from or fit into this? So I'm confused. That's pretty much it. And if this is for engineering and not covered by the state loan for PFAS treatment plants, which I fully understand that state loans don't apply, or state grants don't apply to engineering. Typically, the town has to pay for the engineering, for whether you're on the tip for roads or whatever.
Yeah.
It's the town that pays for engineering. So if this is just engineering and we're borrowing $507,500 for engineering, I'm good. But I want to know why this says that we're borrowing $14,700,000 at an interest rate of 4.4.
Yeah, I don't understand this at all. This was not my understanding of what we were doing. So I'm confused as well.
So, okay.
So do you have any insight into that, Melissa?
The insight that I have is that we're not, the 14.9 million, I don't have the paperwork in front of me, is referenced on it because that is the vote from the Board of Selectmen that to borrow that amount for, or that's the amount quoted as as the cost of the emergency of having to build the water plant. It's not what we're borrowing. We're borrowing the 507.5. I can go back to UFASI, our Finance Advisory Board vendor, and ask them why it's put that way on the bid and the paperwork. But we're not borrowing the 14.9 million at 0% interest. That is something that is applied for. I believe, I keep being told by Dave that he has already done all the paperwork. So I'd have to go back to Dave and talk to him about that.
So we have a bond anticipation note here for $507,500.
Yes.
With a date of November 23rd, 2022, and it says due April 28th, 2023. What's due at that particular time?
So this is a very short-term note. We only got one bid because what we plan on doing is we have other notes coming due, yearly notes coming due April 28th.
Mm-hmm.
So in order to get a better interest rate we were going to combine the 507,000 plus the 881,000 that is coming due April 28th. I think that's the bridge. I don't have it in front of me. And I think there was something else, so that we would go out to bid again on April 28th when those come up and get a better interest rate. This was just a very short term, which is why it's 4.45 interest rate.
Okay.
And it's only for 5 months.
Because you only got one bid, is that part of the reason it's more than twice as much as we anticipated?
I'm sorry, the question was what again?
Why is the amount we're requesting now more than twice as much as we initially anticipated for engineering costs?
Yes, I don't know the answer to that. I don't know the answer. I simply got the amount from Mr. Vijant that's what it costs, and he has invoices that are outstanding. They were actually outstanding for that amount. So Eric will have to go back and talk to Dave. I mean, I'm not in charge of authorizing the bills. I mean, he had the work, Mr. Vijant had the work done, and he has outstanding bills, and the number he gave Eric and I for the amount was 507.5. I'm sorry, that's not.
Yeah, I mean, and just in all honesty, I've never heard that the engineering would cost anything less than the amount, but I've only been here since May, so all I know is the amount that Dave said that the engineering was costing was, somewhere in the order of, between
He has
$700,000 and $800,000.
Yeah, he has actual invoices for that amount. So when we all met in July, the work was already done. And he has a list of all the invoices.
And those invoices should be in front of us now, and Mr. Vijant should be here in front of us now as well, so we can ask the questions that we're asking. So, that's where I'm coming from.
Yeah, I just don't know how we go from approving funding for approximately 200,000 to having invoices for 500,000, twice as much as that, and like nothing to rationalize who approved it, why it got approved, etc. I know you don't have these answers. I'm not trying to put the pressure on you, but I don't.
I am wondering if this ARPA 10, which is water treatment plant engineering, 130,000. I mean, this was from, this is the current, 8/16/2022, but we approved this, I don't know, almost a year ago.
We did that in July, I think.
Has this been July a year ago?
Yeah.
Has this been spent yet? Because if he has outstanding bills, could use this, to pay a little bit of it.
Yeah.
And okay, I'm gonna stop my screen share, and I can pull up the ARPA asks, because we did talk about the engineering, and
So I didn't know anything about the other funding. But what I would say, if you don't, obviously it sounds like we're not comfortable signing the paperwork in front of you tonight. I think we have 30 days, but also if we have to go out to bid again, we can. If we have to wait till even, I don't want to say it, but April and go out then, I don't know what to do with those outstanding invoices, but I agree with Chad that this is not going to happen tonight, because it sounds like you have too many questions. So I just want to put it out there that I totally understand you're not signing it tonight. So
I think that's probably find out exactly what this is and how this fits with the zero interest loan that we're with principal forgiveness that we're getting.
So do you want to put it over to the 6th?
Yes. Yeah. I hope that's enough time. I hope we don't have to go out to bid again.
Right. I would feel more comfortable if he could speak to it. So Eric, if we could have Dave come in, and I would like to see the paperwork that backs up these figures.
That makes sense.
And meanwhile, if there are engineering bills that need paid, hit that 130K if it hasn't been already,
We have it there. That's what we allocated it for.
Right.
Yeah, so this did come in on Friday. Unfortunately, I think if we had a chance to have a discussion about this before we put it on, we might have done something different.
Right. Right.
I apologize for getting on
Thank you,
preliminarily.
Melissa, for hanging in there so long.
And I just
To
want to
answer our
confirm,
questions.
Melissa, the only reason the $14,000, it's 14, whatever. 14,
I wish.
yeah.
all right.
14,000, we'll go.
It is on this form, it's because that's how much the total amount of the project is. It uses the word loan, which is confusing me.
Yes.
That's the total amount of the project, and all the rest of the paperwork only mentions the 5. Okay?
But we as a town are going to be borrowing that 14 million.
Right,
plus.
Yes.
but it just, it's weird the way it's on this paperwork, line 3.
I have a feeling that the Ufasi and Loch Lord, who in conjunction with Ufasi, needed a Board of Selectmen vote, and I think that was the vote for 14.9 million, or town meeting vote. So that leads me to the question of the 507.5, like, I'm fairly new as a treasurer collector. I apologize for this dumb question, but going forward, does there have to be a vote for, like, if this was just for 507.5, there'd have to be a vote, right?
Yeah, it's a bond
Yeah.
anticipation note. So yeah, we'd have to.
Yeah. Okay. So I think that's why the 14.9 is on there, because that was that's how it was moved forward to get the loan for 507, there was a vote.
Yeah.
Otherwise they would have been like, where's the vote? And I would have been like, oh. So that's why I think it's on
There
there.
was a
That's my
vote,
theory.
but-
There was not a separate vote for engineering. The only vote was at the annual town meeting for the full amount.
Right.
There was never a separate engineering vote, which there typically isn't in large developments. That you don't, unless you're breaking it up into phases and you're voting to engineer it now and not doing any work other than engineering. Most things lump that all into one loan order.
And that's what I figured. Yes, thank you. Is that the total cost of the water treatment was 14.9, which includes engineering and anything else. So again, I think that's why the 14.9 million is mentioned.
Veronica, as you'll remember, we did have to do some dancing to get them done because there was no vote of the capital planning committee, and we
Right.
had to
Right,
we had
it
to
was TBD on capital planning,
And
because
it-
we didn't have the full amount.
and it had to be deemed an emergency, and so you had to sign that letter saying that the board thought that it was an emergency. So I think that is referenced because the only authority that we had to borrow was from that 14.9 vote that didn't have a capital planning vote to go along with it, but it had to be referenced as an emergency. So I think that's probably why they included that all on there, to make sure that everybody understood that that was the authorization under which this borrowing is being made.
That makes sense to me. That makes sense to me.
That's what I
Yeah.
tried to say. Like 3 times I tried to say it, but thank
That's
you.
why I paid so much money to go to law school. Those things.
I love it. Mm.
Okay,
Thank you, Eric.
No problem.
Thank you.
all right, thank you, Melissa. Thank
Thanks,
you,
Melissa.
sir.
Have a good night.
And,
Bye. Thank you, guys. Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Okay.
Move to the 6th of December.
Okay, yeah. I just, sorry, just, let me go back to this one. How much was the general graders? There was a flip flop. Yeah, we did generators at Main Street well was 220,
Yep.
and then it might have been a special town meeting. Where that number, that 200,000 number was not made up for engineering. It was something that was, and we did 130 because water had 70 that they could put into it.
Yes, you're absolutely right.
That made the 200,000 for the engineering.
Yes.
Well, I'll just send out something to Dave and Todd, letting them know that, the Board of Selectmen just needs to have a roadmap as to how and why we got from the original 200,000 to this amount now, and what was the change in kind of scope that brought it from one to another.
And what's going on with borrowing for the 14 million plus, when I thought it was a 0 interest loan through the state? Yes, a bank would be involved. And what Todd was telling me earlier this evening was that a bank can charge no more than 2% if for the state water treatment stuff. I'm not saying that right. Todd would say it better than me.
I think we should just put it off for discussion on the 6th.
I
Okay.
think that is a wonderful idea.
All right, so we can cross out 410. All right, moving on to 4.4, discusses ZBA mandatory referral for 75 Pierce Road.
Um, was there something in SharePoint for this one?
I'm looking at it right here. I don't know if it went into SharePoint.
Yeah, I'm not seeing.
That would be under meeting business, right? CBA mandatory. Yes, there is stuff in here, but I couldn't open it earlier.
Is it under correspondence? That's I'm finding. Is that it? 75 Pierce Road?
Yeah, it's also in the, it is in the,
It is in SharePoint.
Yeah, under documents correspondence, I found it.
it's there too. We copied it from there into here. I think this is an accessory apartment.
Yep. I have no comments.
I think this is just a regular. I think, Jazz, what about you? Are you still looking at it?
Yeah, the problem that I'm having is I can't enlarge it to really read it. Go ahead though.
I think I would probably put no comment on this one.
Um, I trust the ZBA's opinion on this, but judging upon their last meeting, there was a question in regards to stairs on whether or not that was part of the calculation of actual living space or not. Veronica, do you remember anything of when we were putting the accessory apartment together that had anything to do with stairs being part of the living space?
No, I didn't believe so.
Okay.
I think the challenge, Chaz, is that there's nothing in the bylaw about it. And so that particular case was confusing because the stairs were coming from an unheated garage. And so do the unheated garage portion of the stairs that go up on the second floor count as the floor area for the apartment that's obviously heated? And
I
So-
don't think that's ever part of.
it's not in the bylaw. It's just there. It was kind of, there was some confusion about past practice of the board, and I think the board disagreed on what their past practice was. It was,
Well, does this, I can't see it, but does this have anything to do with, is this accessory apartment above a garage?
I believe it's in an accessory building. I don't know that the building is a garage or not, but,
And is there stairs in it?
to access the.
The apartment, is that staircase part of the actual living space, is going to be considered part of the living space or not, would be my question. Because that was the big argument in the last one, which I thought was when we put that bylaw together, it had nothing to do with using a stair unless it was inside a house. It would be part of the living space. Yes, that's
If it was part of
It
the
says-
apartment inside to go from like a kitchen downstairs to a bedroom upstairs.
It's saying it's requesting a special permit to construct in addition to a single-family home and requesting approval for use as an accessory apartment. That's all the information it gives us.
right. So it's a new construction. It's not an existing.
Right,
it also doesn't look like there's a garage or any kind of unconditioned
Right.
space.
right.
It's just an addition to a house.
I mean, do you count steps as living space? Isn't that part of your, you don't measure the steps and say that that's living space. You know,
It gets very tricky because in some portions of the building code, when you're talking about living space, you exempt certain things regardless of whether they're inside or outside.
right,
So like, stairs are not counted as living space because you can't live in them.
right.
You walk them in, most of the time, you're not living on the stairs. You're walking up and down the stairs. Yeah, and certain like,
Unless you're in Seattle.
yeah, closets are not
Yeah.
counted as living space because they're not space that
Right.
you can live in. And so the building code has a different treatment of living space, but I think that the zoning board wanted to use a more kind of like, what are the four corners of the house, and that's how you measure the living space. Like, what are the four corners of this apartment? And when the stairs came up into that four corners of the building, that's what kind of created that
Okay,
confusion.
I think I'm gonna put no comment. Do we have comments?
I have none.
No,
Yes?
no.
No
I've said
comment.
what I wanted to say.
Chaz has said his piece.
I just think when a decision is made, it should be universal.
Well, I would agree with that.
That's fair.
All right, moving on. Review the CDBG final report and the project completion letter. So that was in the SharePoint, correct?
Can I
Mhm.
just get a little history on this? It says FY 18, so can you just tell me? I have no problem with
Yeah,
it, but
this
I
is-
just don't know what this is.
Right, this is a grant that the town obtained in fiscal year 18. We've extended it many, many, many times to where we can no longer extend it anymore, but that's okay because the town got a slow start on using these funds. It's really only been the past 2 years
Okay.
that these funds have been in play, so to speak,
They're for two programs, right?
Well, it
The
was. a
fuel
single grant,
assistance.
27,000, I believe. You can correct me if I'm wrong, Jazz. It was, I think, all total around 850,000. 27,000 of that was for fuel assistance. And you had to first apply for the state's fuel assistance program, and there were all these, others that you had to first exhaust other means of assistance before you could apply for this fuel assistance. And then the rest was for renovations to homes, loans that are forgiven if you remain in the house for a certain amount of time.
15
15
years.
years. And then otherwise you have to pay it back, you know, but anyway. So there were, so the past 2 years, a lot of work has been done on this. And, yeah, so,
Thank
We're,
you.
we're probably gonna, look to see if we can get on the next round of CDBG that we're eligible for. We'll have to discuss, what kind of proposal we want to think about. Well, I think the MRPC helped with the application last time, I think.
they helped with the application last time and they were to be the managers, but then they were no longer able to do, project management or whatever you want to call it. And so I don't know whether or not they help with these loans anymore. Do you know, Chaz?
I'm really going to not say anything about this. I just want it to go away. This was the prime reason why I ran for selectman, is shenanigans like this. So I just want it to go away. So whatever you need my vote, I'll vote to get it out of here.
If we apply for, this is answering Teresa's question. If we apply for another CDBG, Community Block Development Grant, CBDG.
Community Development Block Grant,
Okay.
CDBG.
Yes. So, and it's federal funds that are administered through the state, or given to the states to give anyway. And you need to have a program manager to do it,
Yes.
an outside agency. So in any event, this. one
Teresa,
is-
it was designed, this particular one was designed to help the elderly. It was helped to design low-income families that needed to do small fixes to their house, like they needed to repoint a chimney or they needed to get their stairs fixed, cement fix. They needed work on their furnace. They needed their air ducts cleaned. They needed lead paint remediation. Any of these. The projects are small, but the cost is very big because of what it costs for these. And it was designed so that a homeowner, an elderly homeowner, could get this fix, keep it within the 15 years, and then the loan would be forgiven because they've outlived the services of it.
So anyway, this one has come to completion. And
Or we make it go away, as Chaz mentioned.
and I would like to make edits to so you can look at the report. This is the final report and it gives, units occupied by elderly, that was 60 years or over, or 12. Units moved from substandard to standard, 17. Number brought into compliance with lead safety rules, 7. It's all in here and it's good. We were late on getting the fuel assistance rolling. And so in the end, I think a little over 4,000 was what we gave out. 7 people were serviced with that. And that was all within from the most recent heating season, not the one we're in now, but the most recent. Prior to that, we didn't have the fuel assistance part in play. So anyway, so this is the final report, which I am good with. I don't know if you guys are good with it. Chas probably is because he just wants it to go away.
I'm fine with it.
But it is what happened. I would like to make some changes to the letter.
Okay.
It's too I for me. So I would like to say the Board of Selectmen, and I'm writing these down on here as we go. The Board of Selectmen have reviewed the FY18 Townsend Community Development Block Grant Final Quarterly report and find it complete and satisfactory. The town of Townsend is pleased with the success of the housing rehab program and supplemental fuel assistance program. I don't know if I can actually say that we were pleased with the success of the housing rehabilitation program and glad that the supplemental fuel assistance program was finally implemented. The housing rehab program, I won't say that. The housing rehab program assisted 17 homeowners with repairs to their homes, and supplemental fuel assistance program assisted 7 homeowners with fuel assistance. The technical and financial support of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts Department of Housing and Community Development has improved the lives of many families in the town of Townsend. Thank you very much. So the only change I would make is to change I to the Board of Selectmen.
Okay.
And then I can sign it. It should go on town letterhead. And in Diane's email, she said who to send it to. Well, it's on here too, Anna Witten. So,
One of the reasons why I would like to try and do this again is because CDBG has a portion of it you can use for administrative costs. It's
Yes.
you fund the consultant. They
right.
get paid for out of the administrative costs. But we could keep that for administrative costs and hire a planner to do it ourselves.
I agree.
Bingo.
That's one of the reasons why I want to do it, is to
Yep.
help to supplement staffing.
And there are different things that you can apply for it for. And you had mentioned there, the downtown area,
Yep.
the common for
Mhm.
revitalization.
Facade programs, rehab of historic building. Like, there's lots of things you can do with this.
Well, and that's what I was going to interject. I definitely am on board with it. I think the old Harbor Fire Station needs to be fixed up. There's a couple of other historic buildings that need some work. We need to see what we can do in regards to the Old Hart Library. These are a lot of projects that I think a grant like this would be able to cover. But I would like to have either several boards working on it, or we need more participation, because historically the town will get something like this, will apply for it, and then nobody's there to manage it. And we need to have somebody actively managing this.
Yeah, discussion about that this afternoon. So what is the deadline for application for CDBG?
I need to check what the next deadline is. I don't know if it's March or May.
Okay.
I
Yeah.
I have it
The
at my
to-do
desk
list.
in a CDBG folder. I just don't know it off the top of my head.
Okay. So I think that we definitely should.
Yeah, and there's a lot of new nonprofits that are popping up, Eric. I've noticed lately that I think we could partner with as well.
The possibility too.
I don't know. I like the idea of keeping the management funds within town.
Yep.
Doing it ourselves and not having, and knowing where we are with it. So that was tough. All right, moving on.
Do we need a vote do we need a vote on that letter?
Oh, yes, we need a vote on the letter. Let's have a vote. All right, so is there a motion to make the change to the letter, just changing the I to the Board of Selectmen and submitting the final letter to Anna Witten at DHCD?
So moved.
It was a race.
Have the second.
Second, third, fourth.
All right. Teresa, it's so moved.
Tuesday, Marcia.
Chess
All right.
Sexton Durrani, a resounding yes.
And Veronica Kelly. Okay, great.
Good.
All right, moving on to ABCC seasonal population. And this is a form that we have to fill out. Should I just fill this out right now? So city or town, this is for the ABCC wants to know what our seasonal population is. The increase of population due to seasonal reasons.
All those snowbirds who come to Downton in the winter.
it goes up on December 25th. That's about it.
Keepers, don't we have leaf keepers?
They
I'm
don't
not sure that they're
stay.
permanent residents.
They don't stay.
Well, on our census, there is, I know in the housing production plan, when I was putting those numbers together, there is properties or it's called seasonal housing. We do have some that are in town. I don't know what it means, but I do know that we have them.
I think those are more houses that don't have
Heating.
central heating. You know?
They're houses that people use for like cabins, like they come up and,
Right, but it wasn't like, there used to be some on Vintage Pond, that area, that they only came up a long time
Yeah,
ago.
there used to be on Vinton Pond, but I am almost positive that pretty much every house there is.
Is
is-
year round.
they usually get, they usually only go one way. They go from no heat to having heat. They very rarely come back off the having heat rolls.
There might be people that have, central heating,
Right.
but I believe they're year round.
And I think if you beat the bushes, you'd probably find some people who leave and go south for the winter.
Yeah, so that's like the reverse season.
Yeah, so we would have a negative seasonal change
Yeah,
if we found those people.
and, well.
Do you register as a seasonal person though? How does that work?
I think that,
Your home is where you register to vote. So, right?
yes, but yeah, and there's requirements for a certain amount of weeks that you have to live there in order to register.
Right.
Most people who go to Florida maintain their home ownership and residence in Massachusetts, unless they're not going back at all,
Right.
because they spend three seasons up here and one season down there.
So I would consider them seasonal in Florida,
Yes,
but not.
not seasonal here.
Right. So as of July 10th, 2023, we estimate our seasonal population to be zero, which is, I am sure, what we put on this last year.
We did.
Although I could not find that form anywhere.
Well, that would be different if we were like a ski town or something like that, right?
Right. If we had some sort of winter resort type thing,
Sure.
that's coming. That's what we'll do next.
Yeah.
Skating at the VFW.
Seasonal skating at the VFW.
Yes.
We
People
need
wanna-
water in the pond.
Yeah, right.
With that drought, we haven't seen water in that pond for a couple of years.
Okay, so I am filling out this form, acting under authority contained in MGL Chapter 138, Section 17, as amended. Our board at a meeting held on 11/15/2022 estimated that the temporary increased resident population of Townsend as of July 10th will be zero. This estimate was made and voted upon by us at a meeting called for the purpose, so we need a vote after due notice to each of the members of the time, place, and purpose of said meeting. And after investigation and ascertainment by us of all the facts and other cooperative discussion and deliberation, the estimate is true to the best of our knowledge and belief. The above statements are made under the pains and penalties of perjury.
So,
All right.
That's what I like to hear.
I'll second it. I'll second that if that's
All
gonna
right,
be the
all
order.
those in favor of, and we have to sign this, you guys.
now I'll sign it.
All right, all those in favor, Teresa,
Teresa A. Morris, yes.
Chad Sexton Duranian, yes.
Veronica Kell, yes. Okay, so I am signing and handing it to Teresa. Here we go. All right, that takes care of our seasonal population.
Chaz, are we authorized to stamp your stamp on this?
Yes, please. Only Sabrina is.
Okay. Sure. Curses. I thought I had a loophole there.
All right, 4.7, this is Energy Committee postings. I attended the Energy Committee meeting 2 weeks ago, I think it was, because Teresa was unavailable to attend, and they wanted a Board of Selectmen person there. So they would like to post for a new member, and Brent Carney, who was their chair, has resigned officially from the committee. We have that down under announcements. So they want to post for the new member and 2 alternate members. And they are also in discussion about the Energy Master Plan Committee members. They're looking more for a sustainability committee, which sounds more like what we're going for rather than they did research on energy master plans, and towns don't really have energy master plans. They have it as part of the regular master plan where energy might be discussed, or part of the municipal vulnerability plan, which we have. So it seems like, and planning had asked about this last meeting, how are we going to go about seeing that we implement things from the master plan and the MVP plan? And the MVP plan sounds like a perfect place for a sustainability committee to look, because
Yep.
that's
Yep.
municipal vulnerability. So there was discussion about that. So we have to decide how we're going to, let me back up a little bit. They also felt like the way the energy master plan had been set up, it was a member from like every board and et cetera, et cetera. And I guess it was Ed Herman who felt that that was too constraining. All the volunteer boards already have enough things to volunteer for. And he is willing to chair up this as part of the energy committee, but it's really separate from, they were put in place because of the green communities designation. That's why we have an energy committee. And so this is slightly different, but kind of under them. So he thought that we should reconsider the content of the committee and maybe look for people that are interested in sustainability in Townsend. And maybe I hope I'm saying this all right, and maybe use the MVP plan and whatever's in the master plan as a guide. Plus we have Eric, who's already looked into solar panels on town buildings, and, you know, working with that, having a group that's excited about that. So maybe we can get some people who are excited about sustainability
I think that's an
to
excellent idea.
do that.
Yep.
So we don't really have a thing I was supposed to write about, but I didn't. A new thing for that, but I think that that's where we should be going. I agree with them on that. So I think for now what we should do, and I could have done this under liaison reports, I guess, but what I do think we should do is do a posting for the energy committee for one new member to replace Brent and 2 alternate members. So does that sound good?
I'm okay with that.
Okay, so can we get a posting up? There should be a posting for energy committee somewhere.
I'm sure Harrison can find it.
Okay. And to post that ASAP, so they can have a 5th member and some alternates. And maybe I can make a job for me to, by December 6th, maybe work with Ed and Ron and get a posting for what they want. Or maybe it's the next meeting, and Teresa, feel free to jump in there. Since you're the liaison for energy.
I think I mentioned to you that Lowell has a sustainability council.
Yes.
I think we should feel free to steal anything we can from them rather than reinvent the wheel.
Are they on the website?
Yes.
Oh, good. Okay, well, we will steal away.
Just, you know,
And I'm willing to put something together, Teresa, if you want to put something together for that, I'm happy to just shift it over to you.
I will do that.
Okay, thank you. And talk to Ed. He's the one that had a lot of good ideas.
Yeah.
So. All right, that's for, we don't need a, moving on to 4.8. Discuss moving parcel 2920 into land. All right, there was stuff in the, actually, I can pop this up. I think I maybe can still share. So let me share. Business. This is the property that, this has been in play a long time. So I'm gonna pop up the map, if I can see. So that everybody can see where this is. This is a piece of property. I was a new selectman, so it's been 2 years. That came to the selectmen through DCR. It's this piece and it's mostly wet. It's along Route 13 and it's at the cul-de-sac on Hillside Drive. It's between the end of that cul-de-sac, the house behind the houses at the end of that cul-de-sac and Route 13. And it's mostly wet, but you can see that it is a connector between two pieces of DCR land. So they had come to the Board of Selectmen, DCR had, and they had a deal with the person who was being taxed for this property, who was in arrears. And they had a deal to purchase this property, and they wanted it fast-tracked. Because there's a certain number of days that you have to wait, but if the Board of Selectmen would agree, you could do it quickly. So we voted to fast track it and we signed the paperwork. So they got started on it. And around January, so that was the fall of 2020. January to March timeframe, DCR came back to us and said, the guy that we thought owned it doesn't really own it. It's part of a trust. He's no longer a trustee. When we did the title search, he doesn't come up as the owner. It's a trust that, oh, by the way, trusts are only good for like 20 years or something, real estate trusts. So the real estate trust was now dead, no longer in existence. And the two people whose names were on the trust were nowhere to be found.
Little orphan parcel.
It was an orphan parcel, and it was back taxes. So we were going to, so they said, DCR said, and I have the whole stream. You guys probably saw the email stream. There's more than what's there. I have the trustee documents, everything. So what, and our assessor worked with us on this as well. And the treasurer, we were going to move that into land court. And of course, then it was May of 2021, and we no longer had a town administrator. And we were working on trying to figure out how to pay everybody the right amount, et cetera, et cetera. We didn't get it into land court. So I'm just thinking now is the time, and we should move this into land court. And so there have been conversations that with Melissa and the attorney that does the tax title stuff for us. And she is willing to move it along, and we should contact DCR because they are still, or were still interested in buying it as of a year ago. So I would just like a vote to move this into land court for tax title purposes, and to permit, I guess, Eric to, it's a shame we don't have a land use coordinator because that's who would do it, to contact BCR and make sure that, let them know where we are with this, just to stay in touch, because they are willing to purchase that.
So what I'm understanding is that we, the town, are taking over that plot of land through land court, so that once we retain ownership of it, we can then turn it over to DCR to turn it into, to sell it to them.
To sell it to them, that's exactly right.
Okay, so what about the back taxes on it? Is there still back taxes on it?
Oh, yeah, there are back taxes. It was around 30,000 at the point that, at the point that that DCR was gonna purchase it from the assumed owner. At that point, it was in the 30,000 range, and I guess they were going, I don't know what their deal was with them. I would assume they were gonna purchase it for back taxes.
Okay, so
think
what,
that-
the only reason why I'm asking that, Veronica, is that as long as we're made whole, I don't have a problem with that.
Right, that would,
But
was
that
my
has to be
question.
part of the deal.
Yeah.
Cow and Talage would not take this parcel because it was too wet.
Oh, yeah,
You know, they couldn't sell that parcel.
right.
So
not
it
buildable,
was
so they
not
would want
part
it,
of the tax title sale that was done that spring. Had it been otherwise, they would have
Right.
taken it, but they did not. So,
Well, it is fortunate that it connects those other two pieces because that's why they're interested in it.
yes, and
Yeah.
it's right on 13.
Yeah.
So anyway. So I think it's 18 acres, I can't remember exactly. But 20 acres, something like that.
Mhm.
So I would imagine they're still interested, whether or not they'll purchase it for the 30,000 or whatever the taxes are now, because it's now almost 2 years later. I don't know, but I don't think anybody else is going to be purchasing it either, because it is non-developed. You could see it when you drive up Route 13, look to the right before you get to North End Road.
Yep.
You see that wet area?
Yep.
That's it. So
So do we need a vote on this or?
we need a vote.
So I will make a motion that we approve the moving of parcel 29-2-0 into land court, and then to instruct Eric to work with DCR to recover the cost of back taxes
I
with the
second that.
sale of the property.
All right, any further discussion? All right, Teresa. how do you
Teresa
vote?
A. Marsh, yes?
Chaz Sexton Duranian, yes?
And Veronica, yes. Okay, that takes us to 411, the water line. This came in today. This is what was added. I need to find. This is water line information and questionnaire for South Row Road and Emery Road. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but essentially, the water department is looking for responses from homeowners along South Row Road and Emery Road. They are considering putting in a water main. Currently, the South Street water main is the only way to get water in and out of Timberley Park. So they're considering putting in a new 12-inch water main from the intersection of Ash Street and South Harbor Road, going west on South Harbor Road to South Row Road, from there south on South Row Road to Emery Road, then east on Emery Road, connecting to the existing 12-inch water main on Emery Road. So they want to know if residents along that route would be interested in connecting to town water. And they want pretty much yes, I'm interested, or no, I'm not response. If there's a non-response or no response, it indicates no interest. And the Townsend Water Department will not leave a water connection for your home or current existing lot. So if you respond yes, they would leave you a water connection to connect to at some time in the future. So what I think we should do on this is perhaps post it on the website so that hopefully people can see this on the news section as opposed to just the water department page, because I know I don't look at the water department page. I'm not a water taker in town. So it has to be on the front page. So to ask Harrison to post this so that people can respond. I would also suggest that maybe someone in the water department should.
Mail
drop
something
a
out.
note to all those homes or give them.
I think one of these questionnaires is being mailed to each.
Is it?
To each
Okay.
home. Dave did mention this to me. It is something that'll create some redundancy in Timberley Park because it's gonna make the water line be on a loop.
Right,
And so that means that, you know, if a section of the water line is down for some reason, it won't shut off the water for the entirety of they can isolate water outages much
Mhm.
better. So it's a positive thing for the town as a whole. But they are going to make determinations on who they add water line connections on based on what kind of response they get. And, you know, so
According to the last line of this, if they don't have 10 people saying they're gonna add, they're not gonna go forward with it.
yeah, yeah, I know it's something that they really want to do for the redundancy, but that's
Well, it's it. You have
they're
the.
still doing the loop, right? It's just that they won't put the connection into the homes.
There's other dead ends that are on there. I mean, I've learned over the 2 years that I've been working with them more about water than I thought. I had no idea. But it's when you have a continuous loop, you have the ability to keep the water fresh. It goes around and it keeps on going around. Where it is now, there are dead ends, and that's where you get the possibility, and you have to go flush, is because you have those dead ends. So that would allow, especially with the work that's going to be going over there the next couple of years, to allow for just a fresh source all through there with the two wells and the new treatment plant.
yeah.
So are they not gonna do the loop if they don't get the 10 people?
You know, I guess it says they're not doing the connections.
They won't put the connections in.
It's
But I
just
think
The
they'll still do
connections
the
will
loop.
only be placed if 10 or more homeowners indicate they are interested.
right. So they're going to put the loop, but they're not going to put connections to it. And then here's the catch 22 of it. If you are a homeowner and you decide you're not going to get a connection, but then you do decide you're going to have to pay a big connection fee for it.
Right.
Because you're gonna have to
That's-
install something on the main,
Yep.
Mhm.
not cheap.
Okay,
But we can have Harrison put that on
okay.
the front
Do we
page.
need a vote for that or can we just do
Yeah,
that?
we can just do that.
All right, so Harrison puts that up. All right, so that moves us to the work session, number 5. ARPA projects, I don't have anything new on that other than have the water department to at least draft that 130K. They haven't. And that we also had designated, I think 220,000 for the generators at Cross Street. And where was the other generator at? Cross Street and Main Street.
Yes. Maine.
And so I don't know if they've done that work yet, or they should pay attention to that and use that money.
They are in the process of that.
And if it comes in more or less, if it's less than what they designated, that money, we could redesignate it for the engineering.
Mhm.
So,
They did talk about it in their meeting last night. So
okay.
because they have to get it in, and their concern is that there is potential brownouts this winter, according to a couple of reports, that if we have so many days of -10 or -15, then the possibility of brownouts is quite high. So they need to make contingency plans to make sure that they have, if they are working with the generators and they're not installed yet, what to be able to get in to keep the water flowing.
Well, if those funds are there and available to.
It looks like it's snowing out, just saying.
All right.
Oh, Joy.
Joy.
Okay, town administrator updates and reports. I don't have anything else on our file.
Yeah, so I apologize. I will try to go through this very quickly. Number one, I'm sure that folks already know, but it's pretty much official that we are going to have a recount in the state rep race.
Do
For
we know that?
Townsend. The last count I heard, and the counting is not done, they can still receive overseas ballots from armed forces personnel up until the 18th.
Okay,
And I think that Pepperell and Dunstable have counts that they're going to be doing tomorrow and the day after.
okay.
The last I heard, it was 10 votes.
A 10-vote difference.
Yes.
Yeah. I heard 21, but 10 is that yep.
Yeah, I think it's gotten closer. So there is going to be a recount. That is likely to happen in early December. We're not going to have the clerk's office won't know the specifics of the recount until probably after Thanksgiving.
Okay.
But just to be prepared, that means we're going to have to designate some times up here in the Great Hall, the vote where the clerk's office is going to have vote counters in, and
Okay. And they'll do that in the Great Hall.
they'll do that in the Great Hall.
Okay.
Now,
And
does the recount have to be in every town that they voted, or only the towns that they were close?
so generally speaking, it is a town by town request for a
It is,
recount.
Okay, that
But
was my
They're
question.
going to make a request in every town
They are. Okay.
because they're,
I just didn't know how it works.
they're going to make a request in
But
every
doesn't
town.
it have to be within a certain number? Like if there was.
But that's
one-
total. That's
Oh,
the total
that's the
number.
total number.
It's the total number. And so that's why we have to, the clerk won't know until after Thanksgiving, is because the state has to certify whether or not it's in the mandatory recount number. We're pretty certain that
I'm
it
pretty
is.
sure.
Well within the mandatory recount number, but the state has to certify that. Once they get all the certified tabulations from every town, and then they have to do all their final counts. And so anyway, I will let you know if it's going to happen before our next meeting. I'll just let you folks know what's going to be happening.
Thank
Email, but I wanted to let you know that. Well, I also wanted to let you know the determination. I think this is pretty much decided, but I did want to let you know Planet Aid came in with a request to install more Planet Aid
Oh, like, bins.
textile donation bins, given the recent banning of textiles in the trash. However, my personal experience with this in my former life and my conversations with the Board of Health, these Planet Aid bins have been a problem in Townsend for illegal dumping. So before I talked to Carla, I was disinclined to agree to put these on town property or ask to put these on town property. After talking to Carla, I'm less inclined to make a request to put these on town property. I've never had anything but problems with these as places where people just illegally come and dump. I think we need to just encourage the folks in town to use the recycling center for the textiles.
Yep.
And not put in more of these Aids. But I just want to let you know that they made a request.
Okay.
This is a follow-up for a request that Teresa made a while ago about a sign update. I did have a very long meeting with Adam about it. Unfortunately, Adam says, don't bother. The specifics of the sign, the obscenity on the sign has been litigated, and the municipality's lost that they tried to regulate it.
Okay.
And so he said, for purposes of political signs, that he has not had a bylaw that won when it was challenged, for either size or obscenity or anything like any kind of restrictions that municipalities put on. So despite the
Thank you
fact
for
that
looking into that.
I just wanted to let you know, yeah, and so he said, it doesn't mean we couldn't try, he said, but, it's likely to get litigated, and he would almost guarantee that.
I
the
kept
town
my
would
promise.
lose.
I told my petitioners that I would look into it.
We'll try, yeah. And
Okay.
we've gotten complaints and continue to get complaints about that particular sign. And I understand the complaints, and No, I was there
No.
today. I drove back.
It is there.
Yeah.
It's
Um,
definitely
It was
there.
missing, it had come down.
maybe it was, yeah, you know, but yeah, so I think the long and the short of it is the way that the law stands right now, we don't have the constitutional right to do anything. If that changes in the future, there comes some sort of clarification as to specific restrictions, we'll revisit it.
Well, I mean, obviously that would have been caught by it, but I really do, but part of it was like when you go into New Hampshire and it's like all of New Hampshire and the signs just, now they're like getting the size of billboards
It's true.
everywhere. They're just so huge.
Yeah, yes, I agree. So I have the last two things I wanted to bring up have to do with the land use coordinator. As you know, we've had the land use coordinator posted since before Mike actually left. We haven't gotten
We had one.
we haven't gotten any you know qualified individuals that we had one person that we interviewed that was not didn't seem like that would be a good fit. And so and we've had the grant administrator position posted for a long time with no bites at that either. I was wondering how the board would feel about potentially combining those two positions into one 40-hour-a-week position. That would include the land use coordinator, but also have them, you know, administer the grants as well. The reason for doing that would be to raise the salary to a point that I think we would be more competitive without affecting the budget. It would put those increased responsibilities for doing grant administration on the plate of the land use coordinator. But you know, Mike was at 30 hours a week. And so if we took the 10 hours from
I thought Mike was 35. Is he just 30?
I think he was at 35 and then he cut it back down to 30, I think. No, he was at 30.
He was at 35.
Yeah, so
We wanted him at 40, but we couldn't afford it at town meeting, so we cut it back to 35.
Okay. So my concern is that, you know, not getting, if we had gotten more responses to the land use coordinator and I just felt we hadn't found the right person, I would say, you know, let's keep trying. I feel like at the rate that we're offering, we're not, it feels like the responsibility is too much for an entry-level person, like an entry-level planner that's, you know, supervising multiple staff members. It's too much, so it's not an entry-level position.
But Mike had never supervised anybody when he came in.
Yeah,
He
and
took a shot at that.
yeah, and you know, I mean, that's the, I'm certainly more than willing to like keep trying. I'm just concerned that at this point in time, because we're getting zero response.
Okay, so my first thought, we should look at the job description, and because Vinny's job description was pretty robust, it really was. And he had never done that position before either, so if we looked at the job description of the two and figured out how we could combine it, did Mike have, in his 35 hours, did he have free time, an extra 5 hours? Because Vinny's position was originally meant to
Supposed to
be
be 15, yeah.
and it was 15 when we started, and I thought that it really needed to be more than that, but we just didn't have the funding.
Right.
So, you know, and then we cut it back to 10 at his request, but what I'm wondering is, are there enough hours in the week for a person to do both positions? So if we took the job description and we figured out what was most important, what most needs done of what Vinny was doing,
Right.
and put it in there, I'd be good. But I still think we will need another person if we're going to go for grants, like green communities or you know, looking at community one stuff or just kind of, what do we give and take, I guess is what it comes down to, but I am certainly willing to combine the two and make it 40 hours. I just think we have to be thoughtful about how we do it. And if we ever get, you know, think that there's an option for a grant writer or you know, someone to keep it all straight.
Yeah.
Go back to that. Because I do think we need both positions.
You know, this is not my preference. My preference would be to have a full-time land use coordinator and a full-time project manager, grant administrator.
I
That's my
agree.
preference. You
That would
know,
be mine too.
and because I think the town needs it. But if I'm not getting any bites at either one of these jobs, I mean, the other possibility, and I could do some half measures. I posted it at Mike's original
Mhm.
step. I could post it at the step that Mike was this year, and that would, you know, increase the salary.
We have budget for
So,
it.
yeah, because it wouldn't, that's what it's budgeted for this year, so I could post it at that.
And add in some, you know, so it's land use coordinator, which includes some grant responsibilities.
I just don't wanna, you know, I feel like, and I think, you know, based on meetings we've had today and the things that have happened just in this Board of Selectmen meeting, the lack of a land use coordinator and someone in that role kind of steering the ship a little bit. I think the longer we have a gap, the more we're gonna start feeling it.
Yes.
And that's my concern. And I'm gonna sound like a broken record because I know everybody says it. It's hard to hire people these days. You're getting less applicants, less qualified applicants for jobs. You know, it's a challenging market right now.
Okay, so
So I just kind of wanted to throw that out at the board to see if you guys had ideas or.
I'm
Thoughts about it?
wondering if we combine the two salaries and went at a higher, you know, combined the two and went with that, because that's what we've got budgeted for a 40-hour week.
I'm concerned about that because of the union.
Okay.
Like, if we kept it at 40 hours
Mike was in
at
there.
what Mike's last step was,
Right.
that would be more money that Mike was making, but it wouldn't put him out of line with the rest of the union. If I need to raise the salary above what the other members of the union are making, then that's a whole other, I'd rather not get into that first. I'd rather not fight that
You
fight
mean-
from the beginning.
People who have been working here a long time.
People, yeah, the other members of the supervisory union who are at a particular level on the grid. I don't want to, I'd like to try to find someone without upsetting the grid.
Yeah.
So we keep Mike, if I move Mike, the land use coordinator up to where it was,
Mhm.
that means I can advertise it at what Mike was making as opposed to what Mike was making last year. If I add on 5 more hours to the job description, then that adds the salary without upsetting the grid.
Okay.
So those are the two things I'd like to try
How many
first.
hours was the position grant? The grant?
The grant writer was originally funded in FY '22 for 15 hours.
Yeah.
And then Vinny requested to get dropped to 10 hours. So for FY '23, it was 10 hours.
And there was a drop in salary to 10 hours?
He wasn't salaried, he was just an hourly
Oh,
employee, so he was
oh.
just making whatever his rate was for 10 hours.
And what you're considering is taking the 5-hour rate or the full 10 hours that we have budgeted?
Well, now, what I would do is I would move the land use coordinator from 35 to 40 hours at the land use coordinator's rate. And that difference in salary would be made up by not filling the grant writer's position and adding some of those jobs responsibilities to the land use coordinator.
Right, but the funding for that, you're gonna give the entire salary funding that we have for the 10 hours of the land use.
No, it's just.
No, I don't think,
Okay.
because it was for 10 hours. so we would
That's
be
what, that
out.
was. my
I don't know
question.
where Vinny and Mike were. I think they were close on the grid.
They were almost, they
might
might
have been on the same-
place,
Okay.
yeah.
So 5 hours for one would be 5 hours for the other. So
Yeah.
I mean,
Gotcha.
and and then, maybe if we do CDBG, we can get a project manager, a CDBG project manager. We can add some 5 hours of grant writing to that job to be funded by the town while the rest is funded by CDBG. It's not like I don't want to give up on the grant writer or the grant administrator position, but it's been open for a while. We haven't had a single application.
Right.
10 hours is hard to fill because it's not a benefited position.
We had 3 applicants for that position at 15 hours. Good.
And that wasn't that long ago.
No, it wasn't. But in December was a year ago that we interviewed. What do you think, Chaz?
Well, I'm gonna use an old fishing analogy, if you're not catching the fish, change the bait. So yes, I agree. We should combine the two and do what we can do, but you got to keep on throwing your line in the water in order to catch a fish.
Okay, so if the board would be willing to vote to let me tweak the job description for the land use coordinator and move it to 40 hours and repost it after conversations with I think that I have to get the union to sign off on that.
Right.
That would be helpful.
So is there a motion to combine the land use coordinator and elements of grant administration and make it a 40-hour position and repost once the union has blessed it?
So moved.
Second,
Any further discussion? Teresa, how do you vote?
Teresa A. Marsh, yes.
Chad Sexton Duranian, yes.
Override the balance.
And then the last item I have is in the same vein, which is it's become very clear during the absence of a land use coordinator that Beth's 5 land use hours are basically picking up the things that can't get dropped from the land use coordinator's desk.
Right.
I would like the permission of the board to pay her at the land use coordinator rate for those 5 hours as the interim land use coordinator, as doing interim land use coordinator duties for those 5 hours a week.
I'm good with that.
I'm very good with that.
So is there a
So we need a
motion?
Make a motion that we allow Eric to increase the rate for the interim land use coordinator to the land use coordination rate.
Is there a second?
Second,
Any further discussion? How do you vote?
Teresa A. Marsh, yes.
Chad Sexton Duranian, yes.
I don't think that is. I think that's the word that I did.
And the way I'll probably do it is just say, for 5 hours, I'm gonna appoint you to be the land use coordinator, do the land use coordinator duties. So it's not gonna change any kind of union stuff.
Hopefully that is okay.
Beth and I already talked
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Okay.
Please, please thank her for
That's
all the
doing a
work. She's very valuable.
great
That's
job,
a very
yeah.
valuable person.
doing a great job. So I would not wanna. And that was it.
All right, excellent. All right, reports from board liaisons.
I had a meeting with the finance board, finance committee today. They didn't have a quorum, but they went ahead and have the meeting that is recorded if somebody wants to watch it. They held a work session. Their main area of discussion was going over the town warrant, this for the special town meeting. They also had some questions for Eric about what he's hearing so far from the directors, the department heads, sorry, that's what I was looking for, the department heads. And they did, as they always do, as everybody always did, discuss briefly, ARPA funds, how, going forward, how do the, we plan to absorb those costs, or do we just have to think of those people as part-time until the upper funds will run out? I get everything?
I was there. That
You
sounds
were
like
there, I
it.
think that was And that's the only one I've been able to attend since I returned.
I went to energy.
Yay.
We already talked about that.
Already talked
so
about
that's
that.
it. So. Chaz,
Oh, it's
anything
I'm
else?
sorry. I went to water, I've been to planning, I've been to several meetings. Nothing really to report. We've already really talked about what was out there. Was asked, we're probably going to, the water department is going to look to do a report to the selectmen in January. So we might want to put that on the first January slot for an appointment for them. And
Joint with water.
and outside of that, I don't have anything else.
All right, I have nothing. So announcements and communications, we had a resignation from Brent Carney. We already talked about that. I think these are all. Resignation from Alice Struthers from the Townsend Gallery Committee. And Robert Henderson as an on-call per diem firefighter paramedic. And those are the resignations that we had. I think that Unitil, they are going to be doing along the power lines, their vegetation management. And so in the communications section, there's a comment period that is open until December 23rd. And there's a map that's really awful that's in there.
That is awful.
I think that we maybe want to, they're doing herbicide treatments. Their maps are really old. They don't show Pheasant Ridge in there, and these are just older maps. Anyway, I was looking at these thinking, oh yeah, they show the sand pit, but they don't show Pheasant Ridge. It goes right through there. So I am assuming that they've notified Fish and Wildlife and that they've notified the abutters, but I'm not certain. So I was wondering if we should pass this on to the Conservation Commission. This came in on November 9th. And
If you'd like, I can send something out to our government liaison within Unitil to make sure that they've notified Fish and Wildlife and the abutters.
about that, yeah, and all the abutters, because I think people should have a chance to comment, and I think that we as a town, we might want to look at it. So read through that 45-day yearly operational plan, public notice, review, and comment period.
Mm-hmm.
And there's the maps that go with that too. So we might want to bring this back to a meeting on either the 6th or the 21st, 20th, whatever day. 20th. And decide if we, of course, it's due the 23rd, if we as a town want to put anything. So, but conservation should look at it too.
We can send it over to them.
Yeah, so that's this thing.
You
So,
want to give that?
and Harrison might want to put it up on the website as well.
Okay.
So there's that. Then there was, there were a few other things. They gave a suggested list of, you know, if you're planting trees below the regular electricity lines or whatever, they have a list of trees that they recommend, things that don't grow too tall, et cetera,
Short trees.
short trees. So this might be something that we want to put up on the website too. Let me give you this for Harrison as well. Because I think that, I don't know, did you guys look at it? Do you concur with that?
I do.
It would just be a good way for people to know things.
I think we need to do our due diligence with that so that we can say that we did provide that information.
Because there was a really big uproar maybe 4 years ago when Unitil came in and like cut.
Clear cut trees,
Oh
yeah.
my goodness. I mean, what's been good about it is our electricity doesn't go out nearly as often as it used. I mean, it was a regular occurrence.
Yeah, but that was a butcher. That was,
Yeah,
it was a crime scene. They did cut down a lot.
Oh,
a
jeez.
lot. I mean, huge old trees. It was shocking. So anyway, okay, and then there's this about Xfinity as part of our ongoing commitment to keep you and our customers informed about changes to Xfinity TV services. We wanted to update you that the programming network G4,
What is that?
I have no clue, notifies.
I have Infinity, I've never
That
seen
ceasing
G4.
operations effective October 17th. It is our understanding that G4 will continue transmitting programming until yesterday. And we will continue to carry it until such date. So if there are,
I think G4 is a gaming
is it?
channel.
Oh,
That's
that's why.
probably why you don't know it.
Hear about it.
Yep. Okay.
Think. Think.
5.3.
Didn't even know I had gaming
Notification
channel.
to abutters under the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act and the Townsend Wetland Protection Bylaw. This is already gone. Public hearing on Wednesday, November 9th for the PFAS treatment plant. So that has already gone by. A notification that we must follow established protocol if something is happening in the Historic District Commission. An application for appropriateness, hardship, or non-applicability can be procured from the building department and filled out with the requested information and returned to the Historic District Commission mailbox at town hall. So,
I think that came up last meeting too.
yeah. And I think this one notice was up to this.
Yeah, I think that's your last meeting.
So. Oh, Turkey Drive. The office of Dr. David Giannino would like to invite you to participate in their Thanksgiving food drive. They're located at 40 Massachusetts Avenue in Lunenburg. The office would like to collect canned food items to donate to families in need and give them Thanksgiving worth celebrating. They are accepting donations now through Tuesday, November 22nd, and you drop them off at the office, 40 Massachusetts Avenue, Lunenburg. I think that might be.
Did you bring up
Pardon me?
the, we have one committee request submission, form submission? Did that come up? Did I miss that?
Is it in the,
David's,
Dave Chanel?
yeah.
He was looking for the elections,
The elections.
board, so I think we talked about
Forwarded
this
it
in a
to the
meeting,
clerk,
and I
to the
said,
town
give it to
clerk.
town clerk. Because
Oh, okay.
I mean,
That came
that's,
in just on the 10th. That's good. Okay.
Yeah,
we
the town-
met on,
yeah, we had the meet.
we had a meeting.
We had a meeting and it came in and we just forwarded it to the town clerk, and she's in
Yeah.
charge of that.
So.
And he's already been recruited to
Help with the
help with the
recount.
recount, I think.
That's might be what they did. Yeah.
Good for him.
Yeah, I don't know if he knew what he was getting into, but
And after the election, he submitted this after the election.
Yeah. so it is snowing outside, by the way.
Is it
I
really?
can see it out the window. The
Okay,
lights.
I can see it on my monitor over here.
all right, I think that's it for announcements. Next meeting, oh, we didn't write this in. Our next meeting is December 6th at 6 p.m. And yes,
The annual gas exercise, did you read that out?
oh, did I
I
leave
don't-
that out?
The copy might not be in there, but it's in the SharePoint.
Yeah, I did put it in the SharePoint.
What is that for?
It's something that Unitil does annually for,
The 45-day thing?
yeah, no, the 45-day thing I thought was the, herbicides or whatever they put down. Hold on. This is the exercise invitation. Unitil's 2022 annual natural gas exercise is at 3:30 p.m. on Monday, December 5th. Remote participation only. It's for police, fire, emergency management, public works, municipal, regulatory, and elected officials serving the communities. We invite you in Unitil's service area. We invite you to participate in our annual natural gas exercise to help evaluate and improve Unitil's response to a major natural gas emergency. Due to the format of the exercise, only remote participation will be available. So that's on December 5th. And so if you are police, fire, emergency management, maybe we want to forward this on to,
I forwarded it on to both Jay and Gary.
yeah. So, that's what that is. And you have to RSVP. And the announcement says where. That's the very first thing in the share. Thank you, Sabrina. And I think that's it.
Yes, you were mentioning, I think, special town meeting on the 13th.
The special town meeting is on December 13th. Is that at 7 p.m.?
Yes.
And then we will have a regular meeting on the 20th. All right, is there a motion to review and sign payroll and bills payable warrants out of session?
Make a motion that we review and sign payroll out of session.
Is there a second?
Second, sorry.
All those in favor, Teresa
Teresa A. Moss, yeah.
Chaz Sexton Duranian, yes.
and Veronica Cal, yes. And is there a motion to adjourn?
Make a motion to adjourn at 9:52.
Second?
Second,
All those in favor?
Teresa A. Moss, yeah.
Chaz Sexton Duranian, yes.
And Veronica Cal, yes. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thanks, everybody. Chaz, I hope you keep feeling better.
Thank you.
All right, good night.